The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, February 13th, Wednesday, February 14th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Caribou region, on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong, nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. You can follow us all over social media. How about on periscope.tv, where we are live right now? Hello, Periscope. How you doing tonight? We're on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're right there. And, of course, we're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We also have a GoFundMe page going on right now to help us build a brand new studio. Go to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. If you want to give us a hand, we'd greatly appreciate it. Now, if you head to our website, You could shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. My latest blog there as well. We also got great videos from Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. Now, we have all seen and heard almost all there is to know about the JFK assassination at Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. We all know there was likely more than one shooter and not just an act of a deranged Lee Harvey Oswald. We also have seen the famed Zapruder film where we see the skull literally fly off JFK's head, blown onto the trunk of the limousine, and a distraught Jackie climbing up onto the trunk to grab pieces of her dead husband's head. It's grotesque. I think we can all admit that. Well, how many of you actually know there was another film? The Nix film is what we're talking about tonight. The grandfather of our guest, Gayle Nix Jackson, was there that faithful day. So what happens on that film that the FBI actually took it away for a while? Is it so important that for the longest time it was hidden from public? Let's find out with Gayle Nix Jackson tonight on Spaced Out Radio. She is going the distance with us tonight. Gayle, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
I am wonderful, and thank you for having me. Can I give a little shout out to two of my favorite Canadians other than you? Okay.
Please.
My wonderful, wonderful formatter, Johanna Sosha, and my wonderful, wonderful website designer friend / sister, Lynn Taylor. I just want to say that. They live in British Columbia.
Oh, nice.
Whereabouts? Yeah, I have Canadian ties. Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Oh my gosh. You're going to ask me, and I don't know exactly the. I know their address. I just don't know the city. Isn't it ridiculous? Who does that? Who knows?
Who does that?
Addresses
Really?
And doesn't know cities. I do that. So that's what I do.
That's okay. A couple of BC ladies.
I want to say, yeah. Johanna is the publisher of Island Girls Media. It's a magazine. Lynn Taylor is just the most wonderful web designer ever. So anyone ever looking, those are the two wonderful people I use, and I love their guts. So there you go. And you, Dave, I'm really, we're watching the Olympics. The Canadians are just kicking booty, aren't they? Aren't they?
You know what? I have to tell you.
You're not watching?
You know what? I am a diehard sports fan. I don't have cable, and so I'm having to follow everything on the internet, but I'm very proud of our athletes. I realize there's a lot of people in this field of the alternative who think sports is a waste of time. I highly disagree with that. I think sports is something besides soccer, but sports in general besides soccer teach everything from discipline to accuracy, to paying attention, to balance, and it's a beautiful thing. Competition, even though competition seems to be illegal in schools these days, where everybody's got to get a fair play ribbon, the real world is competition. The real world is blood, sweat, and tears and pain. And I love the Olympics because they show the greatest of our athletes, both amateur and professional, and I'm a huge, huge fan of it.
Yeah, I am too. And every time I watch these kids and young people, I'm thinking, geez, I couldn't do that stuff when I could do that stuff. When I was young enough to do all those things, I couldn't do those things. So it's very, very impressive. I say one of the things I say about myself when I introduce myself is I know more about baseball than house cleaning. We love sports around here. We really do. So, and baseball season's coming. It's coming.
I know, pitcher and catchers.
I'm hoping it's the pitchers and catchers are this weekend. Good for you, Dave.
Yes.
But I've got three things I want in my life before I kick the mortal coil, and one of them is for the Texas Rangers to ever win a World Series. I mean, please let it happen in my lifetime. The next thing, they're not in any order. Or my kids to grow up and be successful and give back and do things right for the world, be the kind of people that I hope that I raise them to be. And third, please, can we find my grandfather's camera original film? Please. I've been looking for years, and my grandfather passed away before knowing that the camera original was missing, and I suppose that's a blessing, I suppose it is. But I have been searching for it for years, and we're now suing the American government for it. And I can't talk much about the lawsuit, you'll understand, because it's still,
very understandable.
it's still going. So, but that's good that it's still going. I mean, I honestly, this is 3 years now, and it's still going. So it's all right. That's all right. Maybe we'll get an answer. I asked my attorney that once we do get an answer, can we please have the government allocate as to what they did and what happened? Because I figure if we do that, all the other missing evidence, and there is some, I mean, maybe that will give a chance to those people behind me who are wanting to know what happened to their missing evidence, that's been lost. There's all kinds of stories about how working at the National Archives were men who were taking things for years and years and years. So who knows? I mean, it's disgustingly horrible. It's just terrible.
Well, we're going to get into a lot of that tonight, but I do have to say, my Yankees this year, they are going to be very, very good. They're going.
They're your Yankees, are they?
I have
you
been
don't like Toronto?
No, hell no. I'm on the West Coast. I'm not one of them bandwagoners. I'm not a bandwagoner. I've been a Yankees fan for a long, long time, and I love the Yankees. And
I was happy when A-Rod went to the Yankees. That made me really happy. Yeah, I was happy when he left the Rangers and went to the Yankees. That was a little slam there. Did you notice? The A-Rod slam. Did you like A-Rod?
He's gotten. You know what? I loved him in Seattle. I loved him in Seattle. I really did love A-Rod in Seattle.
Yeah.
But when I found out, because I was getting into sports journalism when he signed with Texas, and when he started going down why he didn't re-sign with Seattle and signed with Texas, I thought that was the biggest backstab. Because I remember, Vancouver had a AAA team, which was the farm team for the Oakland Athletics. So when A-Rod played his 1 year of AAA ball, I got to go see him in Vancouver play a couple of times.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So that was, I was a fan of his because watching him at Nat Bailey Stadium in Vancouver. And, all of a sudden, when you see him kind of turn his back, and say it wasn't about the money, well, you had 252 million reasons to go to Texas. Don't sit there and tell me it wasn't about the money,
Mm-hmm.
So that's
and
just
when you
the way
read
it
all
is.
the personal stuff about that man, I mean, no. I was never so happy as to when he left the Rangers. I mean, not that he didn't do well for us, because he did, but he was just not a good person. And I in my later age, I should say, I have learned to try and stay away and not follow and not pay attention to people who are just really not good for your spirit or your soul, or just, they're like vampires. They suck all the good out of you.
Yes, we have a prime minister like that right now.
No, I'm not going to even say anything.
Oh, I went there.
I
went there. I have no problem going there.
I can't go there because I'm suing the government. I don't want to give any reason
That's all right.
for anybody to say, oh no, yeah, I can't. I can't do it. But I will be able to. There will be a time. It's coming. It's coming.
That's okay.
That time.
I want to get really deep into your family and your scenario. I mean, you've mentioned a little bit of it of it tonight, but for a lot of people, especially the generation, because I was born in the 70s, early 70s. I'll be that.
Oh my gosh, you're so young.
But I'm beautiful.
You're young.
I really
could be
am.
your mom.
I'm a solid 5.3.
I could probably be your mom.
I'm a solid 5.3.
I could be your mom.
No, you couldn't.
No,
you couldn't.
I could. I could, but go ahead.
Okay.
I graduated in the 70s. I graduated from high school in the 70s. 76 to be exact. Bicentennial.
I was 3.
See? Okay, well, so if I had been one of those people that get pregnant and married and whatever, young at age, see, I could have been your mom. I could have been, and I mean, I would have been a very young mom, but I could have been. So
yeah, well, you know what?
Go ahead.
You know what? At least I would have got a good background of baseball, so that's okay.
Baseball and knowing too much about Kennedy, more about the JFK assassination than you ever wanted to know. Just talk to my kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So should I call you mom now? Surrogate mom?
American
there you go.
Mom Gayle, Mama.
Okay,
Some
Mama
of my
Gayle.
students used to call me Mom. Yeah, go
Mama
ahead.
Gayle. That's what we're calling you tonight.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
No,
Anyhow.
that's too close to Mama June. No. You know that Honey Boo Boo show?
No.
No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay,
No.
go ahead.
All right.
Sorry. Let's be serious.
Your family has, like everybody in the JFK world, has seen the Zapruder film, and they've seen
yes.
what's happened. And when did you find out that your grandfather was there that day and just happened to have a video camera?
I was there. I was all of 5, but I was there with my mother and my grandmother. Now, we didn't make it down to Dealey Plaza where he was because the crowds were so thick. But yeah, I was there. And he didn't even know that he had taken film. He knew he had taken, when the motorcade turned onto Houston from Maine, when they turned on, before they turned to Elm, he knew that he had taken a picture because in his viewfinder, he saw, this is what he told us, that he saw one of our senators that he didn't much care for. His name was Ralph Yarbrough, and who waved just straight at him, and he was disgusted by it. He thought, no, I've got to get a picture of the president and his wife for the grandkids. I want my kids, my grandkids to see it. And so that's when he went running across the swath of grass there between Maine and Elm. That's when he did. And he was so tall. He was 6'5". Which to us, would be like regular height person, the way he was holding his camera. He was so scared because it was just at that time when he began running that he heard the shots and he didn't know where they were coming from. And he just saw people dropping all around him, dive bombing into the ground. He was clenching, like, you would white knuckle when you're on a snow road or an icy road. That's what he did with his camera because he had a Keystone camera and it had a grip. So that's how it squeezed and, took film. And if you ever saw copies, there are first-generation copies. You know that you've seen one that's straight from him because it looks like the motorcade is going uphill. And the reason it looks that way is because he was, like I said, holding it down. He wasn't looking through the viewfinder, taking the film, which is odd. Every time I think about that, I don't want to proselytize and I don't want to do, but I know that God put him there for a reason. I know he was there for a reason. If you think of all these things, like not knowing that he was taking film, holding it down, and gripping the camera so that he still got enough of it. And when he realized that the motorcade was going past him, he then started taking pictures. But at the beginning, he didn't realize that he was taking film. So what he did, my grandmother and grandfather were very frugal. And my grandmother got on to him all the time for spending so much money on film. She's like, I could use some new nylons. I could use makeup, but no, you're going and buying film. So he knew that he had to use all of his film before he could get it developed. And he looked down there and he saw that he had only used like a few feet because the Keystone, if you look down, the older cameras, they would show you how much film you had left. So he knew he had a lot. So the next weekend, they had canceled all the football games that weekend because of President Kennedy's death out of honor for and respect for him. So the next weekend, my uncle had called my mom and said, hey, do you think you can get your father-in-law to go take pictures of my girlfriends at the football game? And he did. He went to a football game and took pictures. So when you see, you'll know that you've seen the true first generation Nix film in its entirety when you see the football game at the end. And so when he got finished taking the football footage, he dropped it off at the 24-hour Dynacolor, and they called him in the middle of the night and said, Mr. Nix, you've got film footage of the JFK assassination. And he said, no. And they go, oh, yeah, you do. And the FBI has sent out this edict saying that we have to automatically turn it over, but we wanted you to see it. You're such a good customer, yada, yada, yada. So he and my dad went down in the middle of the night. He called my dad, and my dad met him at his apartment. They went down, or his home, and they went down to Dynacolor and watched it over and over and over on a big white wall. And the customer, the technician, and the manager who were there, because the technician who developed it called the manager and said, oh my gosh, there's JFK footage here. So there was those two in there and my dad and my grandfather. And they watched it over and over and over until the technician said, Mr. Nix, I'm scared that the light bulb is going to burn the film. Maybe we should give it a break for a while. So my dad said, yeah, Dad, we need to, let's just stop for a while. So my grandfather was friends with Forrest Sorrells, who was the head of the Secret Service in Dallas. And he called Forrest when he got home, like at 6 a.m. And Forrest said, you need to take it straight to the FBI. I mean, and so he did. He took it himself to the FBI, and just like a good patriotic American, here, I mean, I know that y'all said you wanted to see if anybody had JFK films. This is mine. Here you go. Well, they kept it for days, 3 or 4 days. And when they told him they were only going to keep it for a day, they kept it 3 or 4. And it's in there that I started worrying that maybe something happened. It's in those first few days. But my grandfather didn't. Other than when he got the film back, he took it on a Monday to them, got it back that Thursday. When he got it back, he watched it again, and he said, it doesn't look the same. Why is it all jumpy? And as I got older, and not at that age, but as I got older, I would say to him, well, Papa, you only watched it, in Dynacolor on the wall. I mean, maybe you just forgot pieces of it. Maybe there was something that you just thought was there that wasn't. And I know what it looked like. I know what I saw. It looked different. It was jumpy. And in fact, that's the same thing he told Mark Lane when Mark Lane interviewed him for Rush to Judgment. So, the Warren Commission never interviewed my grandfather. The FBI took his statements, but he didn't go in front of the Warren Commission. Don't you think that's odd? Here's a man who's taken assassination footage, and the Warren Commission doesn't want to talk to him. It's weird. So anyway, I found out that the original was missing when we were told, my grandfather was told, after 25 years, the copyright would revert back to our family. So in 1988, I called UPI, which was now defunct, and WTN had bought them out. And so I got in touch with them, and they said, oh, yeah, well, okay, you can have the film, and so you can have it back. I mean, that's what we agreed to. Well, the lawyer that agreed to give it to me immediately was fired for telling me I could have it back. And I got another call from another attorney who said he was wrong. Copyright laws changed. You can't have it back until 1990. So I said, well, that's fine. So in 1990, I was friends at that time with Gary Mack, who during those days was a conspiracy, a very good researcher, I'll tell you. He later became the archivist for the Sixth Floor Museum, I guess the curator or whatever they call them. But, oh my, he said, Gayle, listen, I know this man. His name is Robert Groden. He lives up there in Pennsylvania. He knows all about film. He was on the House Select Committee as a photo consultant. Let's get him to go to the National Archives and pick it up, because you're not going to know what you see when you pick it up. Or go to the National Archives, go to WTN. And so he did. He went up there and brought back all these tons and tons of films. And in all of those reels, there was not an original, not. And our whole family was astounded. But I was really upset. And I said, how can there not be an original film? So from that time on, I started arguing with the National Archives. I bet they were so glad I quit calling them. And they finally said, well, we don't have it. We don't have an original film either. We've got a copy. So we don't know what's happened to the camera original film. We have no idea. But my grandfather's film is the only one that shows the grassy knoll in its entirety. The only one. It shows it during the assassination, and then my grandfather panned back over when, by that time he had the camera to his face, panned back over and showed it again, after the assassination, after the motorcade sped off to Parkland. Don't you think it's odd?
It is odd, but and we're going to have a lot of time to get into this oddness here, okay? And I know I just made up a word there, much like people kind. It's what us Canadians do, But, yeah. Anyhow, you're too funny. You're too funny. I'm trying to do a serious interview with you here, But
well, am I being? I'm not. I was serious when I was talking about grandfather, because that's serious stuff.
I'm just teasing a little bit.
Okay.
Please tell us about your grandfather Orville. And, you know, I don't know what your family's financial situation was, knowing the way it was up here in Canada, obviously things being a little bit different when it came to technology. Not a lot of people at that time had video cameras, I'm assuming, on both sides of the border.
Okay, well, it's not really a video camera per se. It was a movie camera. I mean, and yes, even still, those were pretty new. I mean, Mr. Zapruder had one, and my grandfather had one. Mr. Zapruder's was better, but Mr. Zapruder was my grandfather would be considered, I suppose, well, I know, blue collar. He worked for the General Services Administration, which is a government entity, and he worked on the air conditioners. He used to say, I'm just a glorified janitor, but he worked on the air conditioning units, and also he wore a little uniform and worked in downtown Dallas in the offices down there, which is how he met Mr. Sorrells, because the Secret Service offices were in the General Services Administration office. So, but no, my grandfather had a fourth grade education, Dave, a fourth grade education. And he was always quite insecure about it. It's terrible. I mean, he tried hard to educate himself. He tried hard to not look like what he would call white trash. It's what my grandmother actually would say, those things. He wore fedoras. He played golf at a country club and played poker with a bunch of men who could afford to be there. But my grandfather was watching every penny to ensure he could pay for tea times and all, you know. I mean, he was a good man. Now, I will also say he was quite the ladies' man. He didn't mind that the ladies all flirted with him because he was very charismatic and handsome. And, you know, I don't know, it never bothered my grandmother, but you know, he liked looking good. So he would have those suits. What are they called? That when you are in the light, they kind of change color. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those suits?
Is that a
that were really important, that were really popular in the 60s?
The zoot suit?
No, our zoot suits were more like what you'd think, like a jazz player or something. They're the suits. They were pretty fitted. They were double-breasted, and they were shiny. I mean, you would look at it, and it would look like it was charcoal gray, and then you go out in the sun, and all of a sudden it had like a purple sheen to it. I don't know what they're called. I need to find out what those are. But anyway, those are the kind of suits and fedoras and all he would wear. And smoked Lucky Strikes, dear God in heaven, one right after the other. I mean, they were lit all over the place. You walk through his house. He used to live in a small home off Denley in southern Oak Cliff, which is a suburb sort of Dallas. And I mean, there were ashtrays everywhere, and there would be a cigarette burning in each of them, you know. But I guess back then cigarettes were like 10 cents a pack or 15 cents or something. And anyway, Lucky Strikes, he smoked those all the time. And my grandmother worked at a cafeteria and served vegetables in the line, you know. So no, I am not from a wealthy family at all, but education was so very important to my grandfather and my grandmother both, because they never had the chance to get one. They were picking cotton in the cotton fields in Texas, in East Texas. So yeah,
shark skin was the suit. Shark skin was the suit.
That's it.
There you go. Thank you to
told
Bob
you that?
and Shark. No, we got our audience bailed us out of that one.
Oh, they knew. Are there people going to call in and say, "Lady, I can't understand what you're saying. What is that accent?" Are they going to say that?
No, you sound beautiful. You sound beautiful. Okay. We're not taking calls tonight. We'll take their questions out of the chat rooms, which are packed up here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice. Are they really?
Yeah. Why not?
That's good.
They usually are. Our audience likes us.
That's good. Well, how could they not? Mm-hmm. It's hard not to like Canadians. I've got to meet. Oh, I better not say that. I have met a few rude Canadians, but not many. Not many.
So have I.
Okay. So now. That you were asking about the economic background of our family. We were very poor. I mean, when I grew up, when my mom and dad, they got married young too. My dad was 18, my mother was 18. They had me when they were 19. Yes, they were very young. In fact, they were the same age as Lee Harvey Oswald. He may have been a year older. They were the same age as Bill Frazier, no, they were a little older than him. And he's one of my friends, by the way, too. Oh, gosh, we've got a lot we can talk about. You know, I'm starting to think about all these things we could talk about. But yes, the economics weren't that great. So my grandfather, from the time I was just a little girl, since my parents were so young, as happens in most families where you have a young child and your young parents, you raise your kids almost like they're one of your pals. Now, not so. I mean, my parents, were very strict. But what I'm saying is they spent a lot of time with me. So I learned how to read early, like when 3. I think I was 3, maybe. And I was reading business letters by the time I was 4. And let me tell you, Dave, that was my grandfather thought that was the best, greatest thing ever, because he still would have problems reading because of his lack of education. So when he would say, Gayle, come over here, read this letter for me. And he would just get the biggest kick out of it. Like you or I watching one of our kids make a touchdown or hit a home run. That was what it was like for my grandfather, for us to be reading and playing the piano and doing things that he couldn't do, you know, that he never had the opportunity to do. He was just like every person that was middle class or lower middle class during the 60s. That was my grandfather, you know, a good man. I saw some really terrible things happen to him through this JFK stuff. And I've had some not great things happen to me either, but my grandfather, it was worse. I'm not the one that took the film. He did. I'm just the one that has been trying to find it forever. And I have the rudest people sometimes say, oh, you're only trying to find the film to prove it's as important as the Zapruder film. Well, you know what? It is. It is. It's another view. With my grandfather's film, the Nix film, and the Zapruder film, you put those together and you've almost got a 360 view of Dealey Plaza. I mean, so of course it's important. Now, is it as graphic? No. Is it as close? No. But does it show areas where my grandfather totally believed, as did Forrest Sorrells, shots came from? Yes. Could we find something in there if we had technology today? If we found the correct camera original film? Yes. It may be nothing. It may totally prove that there was never anyone on the grassy knoll. But then again, it could. It could. It is strange to me that when the FBI took his film and gave it back and took his camera next, they sent it back to him 6 months later in pieces. Now, why do you tear up a camera? Why? I know why. I mean, so it can never be used again. But they didn't do that to the Zapruder camera. Why did they do it to the Nix camera? So, yeah, I've got lots of questions, and my attorney's trying to ask the government and anyone that will listen to the same questions too, that this just doesn't make sense and what's going on here, you know?
Do you believe that the film? Do you believe the film was edited?
I have seen a first-generation copy that I no longer have. The 6-4 Museum has it, and it has a splice in it. How can a first-generation have a... Okay, I didn't say that the right way because I'm not camera technologically proficient when it comes to the terminology. What I'm trying to say is there is a first-generation copy attached to the original of my grandfather's film. So I know where half the camera original is. It's at the 6-4 Museum. But it's the half that shows the football game that I was telling you about. So someone spliced the original part of my grandfather's film from the backside that was of no use to anyone. You see? Now, why would that happen? It's a huge mystery. And it's not, Dave, like the naysayers say, you're just wanting to find it so you can get rich. No. I'm wanting to find it because, in my opinion, the more that we can prove or disprove rumor, innuendo, conspiracy, whatever, the better off we're all going to be. And like I said before, if we could find the camera original and have it analyzed technologically, we could put it into that big rumor that there was someone on the grassy knoll. Okay? Or maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I believe my grandfather and think there was. But there's many people who don't. So got to be open-minded. You got to listen to all sides of the story and let the evidence take you where the evidence takes you, you know?
I want to know, Gayle, and I think the rest of this hour, I'd like to concentrate on your family because you said something that was very intriguing to me, that ever since that day, this hadn't been a very pleasant run, not only for your grandfather, but for the entire family right up to you. What do you mean by that?
Right. That's right. Well, my grandfather was so excited, Dave, when he found out he had footage, because he thought, oh my gosh. I mean, by that time, and I didn't explain this very well, and I'm sorry. He didn't know he had footage till a week after the assassination. So by that time, Time Life had already run the Zapruder film. It was all over the news that there was a home movie of Zapruder and that he had been given $25,000. Well, $25,000 to my grandfather might as well have been $25 million. I mean, to him, he thought, this is a man that's working in a government job for very low pay. I mean, to him, that was his retirement. So when he found out he had footage, he thought, oh my gosh, surely, I mean, because mine's from the other side, and yeah, it's not as close, I'll get half of what he's going to get, and oh my goodness, I can retire. So, I mean, he really did think that something good was going to come of this because he was there. And so when he went, Time Life sent him a airplane ticket for he and my dad, because my grandmother refused to fly. And they went up there, and the ladies were, the people that they met there were a little bit on the rude side. My dad has told this story a million times, that he held the door open for a lady going into the Time Life building, and she looked at him and said, go to hell. I can open the door myself. He was like, geez. I mean, we're Texas down here trying to be nice to people and trying to do the right thing, and they're cussing at him for holding doors open. But anyway, when he went to the Time Life building, they were very impressed. They were upset that the coffee was so expensive. They were even more upset that the hamburgers were so expensive. But when they got up there to the Time Life big office, there was Art Keeler and Chapin Carpenter and all the big wigs, C.D. Thompson, all the big wigs for Time Life, save for Henry Luce. He wasn't there. And the man that took him up there to see these people was James Wagenborg, who has since, he and I have become dear, dear friends, and he remembers it all exactly, too, because he's the one that took him up there. But, in fact, he wrote a chapter and the foreword in my new book. Anyway, they went up there, and these men, all in their black suits, sitting in their Eames chairs in the huge administrative offices of Time Life skyscraper. And they're sitting there, and there's my dad and my grandfather with their Texas twangs and their fedoras and their fear of 50-cent hamburgers, sitting there with them. And these men all huddle together, and they start watching my grandfather's film, and they watch it, and they watch it, and they watch it. And we're talking about kind of like my grandfather did at Dynacolor, over and over and over. Finally, they got together in another little huddle, and James Wagenborg tells me, he goes, Gayle, I just knew at that moment that they were probably going to turn around and say, James, go write up the contract. I mean, we're going to buy this film. But they didn't. They turned around and they looked at my grandfather, and they got to remember what I told you. He thought this could be his retirement, right? He thought he was going to take care of his wife, vacations, as much film as he wanted, whatever, by selling this film. They turned around from their huddle. They looked at my grandfather, and they said, Mr. Nix, we're not interested. This is nothing but a nuisance film. Well, my grandfather stood up. He was already disgusted. He was hungry. He was treated badly by the people up there as far as being rude. He didn't like New York City. And he stood up, and he clenched his fist, and he looked at my dad, and he said, come on, son. And they left. Well, they got up and left, and James Wagenborg tells it, when he got up like that, he said, Gayle, your grandfather was so tall, and so was your dad. He goes, they were big men. And I remember thinking, oh, my God, these men are going to go all John Wayne on these little New York executives. He goes, I just figured that's what they were going to do, but they didn't. They just got up and left. Well, waiting at the bottom of the stairs were two men from UPI, Reese Schoenfeld and Burt Reinhardt. And they said, well, did you sell it? Did you sell it? And he said, no, I didn't. And he said, the UPI guy said, well, come with us. And he goes, no, I've got to have some coffee. I need a cigarette. I will be there in an hour. And so they went to UPI and made a deal with them. And UPI gave him $5,000 and a fedora hat. That's what they gave him. Now, Zapruder's family, the story back then in 63 was that Zapruder was paid $25,000. That's just not even true. He was paid $150,000. But he was so worried that people were going to think that he was making money off a terrible, tragic event like this that he called Time Life and said, what do I do? Everyone's on to me about the money I'm making. And they said, tell everyone, tell the reporters down there that you're donating it to the Tippett family, which he did. But he never did that. He never donated it to the Tippett family. So that's another little piece of trivia that a lot of people don't know. But James Wagenborg knows because he was there. And he was one that took care of the film. So he was in charge of the Zapruder film. So I really hope you get to talk to him someday on your show. You would like him a whole lot. All right. So let's see. Where did I go? I get off track so often, Dave.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. You're filling us full of information, which is really good when people do go off track. I'm enjoying this. Thank you. You were talking about you were talking about your grandfather, about the abuse that your family has taken over the years, even up to this day.
Yes. Yeah. Well, now let me tell you more about my grandfather. That for him was really abusive, but. Let me tell you, it's just little like family homey stories, as Josiah Thompson, Tink Thompson calls me. Because, Gail, you've got these homey stories, but they're true. I mean, it's because this is how we grew up. Because I told you I had younger parents. Because they were young, I mean, they still wanted to go out and have fun with each other on the weekends and do things. So most every weekend, my sister, my younger sister, and my younger brother, we would all stay at my grandfather and grandmother's house. Well, one of the greatest things that we got to do over there that we didn't get to do at our own home was answer the phone. So when the phone would ring, I mean, we all took turns on who got to answer it. And my grandfather, to him, that was high technology. So you never let it ring more than twice because that was just rude. You had to answer it by the second ring. So we would fight over who was going to answer it, but someone had to answer it by the second ring. That's how we used to do it at his home. After everyone found out that he had taken assassination footage, he started getting phone calls, not threatening per se. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to kill you or anything like that, but making comments like, you need to shut your mouth, and I bet you were a part of the assassination, and you don't need to be talking about this film, and you better be quiet. I mean, haven't you seen everybody's dying? You're going to be next. I mean, that kind of stuff, Well, it kind of bothered him because, well, obviously, and he would see, like, figures at the door he had a front door and he had a back door. He just lived in a small little frame house, but he had a screen door and then a regular door. And at nighttime, whereas before he never locked or shut the front door, at nighttime or when it started getting darker, he would immediately shut and lock the door. And the biggest thing I remember as a little kid, was that we weren't able to answer the phone over there anymore. All those years we were able to, and we thought it was grand fun. And then when we got older, after all this started, he wouldn't let us answer the phone anymore because he was scared it would be one of those people, calling in saying you need to shut your mouth or you need to quit talking or, Well, let's fast forward to 67 now. He loved Walter Cronkite, and I have to say my grandfather was a Democrat. My mom and dad were Republicans. My grandfather was a Democrat. And he, I guess Democrats back then were what we consider conservative Republicans now. Isn't that strange? I mean, it's kind of like flip-flops, but that's pretty much what it was because he was very conservative. But anyway, he was asked by CBS to come down, and they were doing a 4-part special or 2-part special, I can't remember, in 67. Well, my grandfather took my sister and my brother and myself down there because he really thought we were going to meet Walter Cronkite. He didn't know that Walter Cronkite wasn't going to be down there. But we went down there, and there were all these people that they were interviewing. And when it came time for my grandfather to be interviewed, the director's name was Bernie, off the top of my head, I can't remember. Bernie Birnbaum, that's what it was. He came and said, "Oh, Mr. Nix, we're so glad you're here." And my grandfather introduced us all because he was really proud of his grandkids. And when it came time for him to be interviewed, Eddie Barker, who was the head CBS guy in Dallas, got him up there and said, "Okay, Mr. Nix, where were you standing?" And he showed him. Where do you think the shots came from? And my grandfather pointed over there at the stockade fence. And they would say, cut. And my grandfather would go, "Oh, did I do it wrong?" Or they said, no, let's do it again. And they didn't tell him at first why they kept cutting it. And they did that 3 or 4 times. Finally, Bernie Birnbaum came over to my grandfather. He goes, Orville, why do you keep saying that the shots came from the stockade fence? And my grandfather said, because that's where I thought I heard them come from, was over there in the grassy knoll over there in the fence area. And Bernie Birnbaum said, well, where did the Warren Commission say they came from? And my grandfather said, well, they said that they came from that little crazy kid up there at the Texas School Book Depository. And he said, well, that's what we need you to say. So when they finally interviewed him, asking the question again, they said, Mr. Nix, where did the shots come from? And he said, the Texas School Book Depository. Now, I have to tell you, none of that was ever used in the 67 special by CBS. And back when I was at the beginning trying to find the film, I had called CBS and said, can I see those outtakes? Because I was there that day, and so were my sister and brother, and we would really like to see those of my grandfather. Oh, well, those have been destroyed. We don't have those anymore. But the real story I want to tell you, I mean, that's how it went and how the media worked with the government back then. That's how it worked. I mean, that's just how it worked. And when we got back to the car, my grandfather was really upset, and I was the oldest, so I got to sit in the front seat. My sister and brother were in the back seat, and my grandfather just sat there, lit a cigarette. He already had one lit and sitting in the ashtray. And I said, Papa, what's the matter? And he started hitting his steering wheel, kind of slamming it with both hands, like the 10-2 position. He was just kind of hitting it over and over. And I said, what's the matter? I mean, I was kind of scared because I'd never seen my grandfather act that way. And he said, why do they think I'm so stupid? Why did they want me to look stupid like that? I told them what I saw. Why did they make me want to say something that I didn't see? And that, I will never forget that, Dave. I will never. And when I talked to my sister and brother about that, they remember it too. And we were just little kids. But that's something you remember of someone you love so much, and you see them in that type of mood or in that type of, you don't forget it, even as a little kid. And it made me sad for my grandfather. By then I was almost 10. I remember thinking, golly, I just felt like hugging him. I mean, he was so upset. It was after that the Jim Garrison trial came up, and Jim Garrison called my grandfather to come down there, but he wouldn't do it because he felt like everybody was kind of making fun of him. And it no longer was, oh, good, this could be, retirement. This could be, it was something that after the phone calls, after that in 67, he was done with it. I mean, it was just something he didn't want to talk about. It was, in fact, before, when he first found out that he had taken the film, he told everybody that he had done it. After he started getting those phone calls and the weird, strange things happening, he never told anyone anymore that it was him that did it, ever. So with me, I mean, my thing has just been normal people, well, not normal. They're not normal. But people saying, how do we know that you're even Orville's granddaughter? And if Orville was friends with Forrest Earls, maybe he was in on the assassination too. And, I have been run the goose chase from talking to people, experts with the House Select Committee, who sent me to Vicente Fox, the ex-president of Mexico, saying that there was a rumor that he had gotten a copy of films for some sort of cultural exchange or something. And then I had a rumor, and I called a sheikh in Dubai because I had heard through rumor. I mean, I chased down all these things, but as far as bad things happening to us, the bad things that have happened to us is just being lied to over and over, not just from members of our government, but members of UPI, people who are supposed to be truth seekers within the JFK community, if you want to call it that. I mean, I don't know that you can even call it a community, but I mean, it's people not working together and saying, what does it matter if we find the Nix film or not? Well, it matters a lot. I mean, would it matter if there had been footage of Charles Manson doing the things he had done? Yes. And if the camera original was lost of that, I mean, wouldn't we have said something about it? Would it have mattered? I mean, if, we didn't have the footage of President Reagan being almost assassinated, or all of Gerald Ford, any of them. I mean, we had footage and we saw who did it, and we saw, why is it any different that our 35th president, who was in downtown Dallas, and there was footage of him being shot, is missing? It's important. I mean, there was never a trial. It's still an open murder case in Texas. Did you know that? It is.
I did not know that.
There was never a trial. Yeah. So, yeah, that's why it's important. And it's been my sister, my brother, even my father, who was an only child. I mean, just totally pretty much wash their hands of all of it. They're not as involved in it. But me, I guess it's because I had a kindred spirit with my grandfather, I suppose. It's because he always made me feel really very special. And I just feel like I owe this to him. I mean, he should have been treated better and things should have been happening better for him than it did, you know? So I've even asked my kids, look, if I die before any of this happens, you've got to promise me that you'll keep trying to find the original film. And they both promised. Good kids. They're good kids. So there, I don't want to make it sound like, I mean, you know, someone's tried to run over me or put glass in my dinner. None of that silly stuff. No, it's just, yeah, the attitude that goes along with why is it important? It's very important. I mean, it's very important. It's important when your government lies to you. That's important. And it doesn't make you any less patriotic to point that out. I mean, I think it makes you more of a patriot to point out when your government is in the wrong, you know? But I'm a bit of an activist. So there you go. I could have been a hippie if I had been born 10 years earlier or 8 years earlier.
You mentioned, and we only got about 5 minutes left here before we got to go to break, and I'm very, very interested here in asking you this. You mentioned that you weren't allowed to answer the door or the phone when you went and visited Grandpa and Grandma after that. What was the rules? Right. Was there a family forum or a family meeting about the new rules with all the death threats that were coming in to you guys?
No. My grandmother was scared half out of her mind, and she would not even allow my grandfather to talk about anything like that around us when we were little. Now, I would hear them talking, and I'm telling you, I was a nosy older kid, kind of spoiled, and I would hear them talking. But no, that was the rule that my grandfather and grandmother made, that we were never to answer the phone again. Only my grandfather. I mean, he didn't even want my grandmother answering the phone either. So it was just him being the head of the house, the man of the house. He'd take care of it. You know, we weren't to do any of that anymore. And that's another one of those things you remember as a little kid. You know, it's just funny, isn't it? Those things that come to mind, and then you realize later as a grown-up how important they are. You know, I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, he was trying to protect us from whatever he felt was going on, you know. He swore that no shots came from the Texas School Book Depository. And you know what? I mean, where he was standing, if anyone wants to look later and look up, Google Orville Nix and see where he was standing, I mean, it was at a diagonal from the Texas School Book Depository, and he swears up and down that the shots came from the grassy knoll. Now, the late Sherry Feister, or I hope I'm saying her name right, it might be Feaster, she's a nice lady. She did a forensic study saying that shots came from the South Knoll. And you know what? That could have happened too, because my grandfather said there were more than 3 shots. And there were not 3. There was at least 4 or 5. So who knows? I mean, how many people were down there shooting? I mean, I don't think it was a shooting gallery, but I think there was a lot more than one person up in the Texas School Book Depository firing anything. So, yeah. It was a scary time. I mean, you had General Walker running around, you know, having his people spit on Adlai Stevenson when he came to town. You had Nazis still going on down in downtown Dallas and putting on protests. You had the KKK was still, you know, alive and well in the Dallas area during that time. I mean, it was you have to understand the history of Dallas and what was going on in the atmosphere, the social atmosphere, to really get a sense of how people felt. And I know that when I was interviewing people for my new book, they still don't want to talk. These people are in their late 70s and early 80s, and they still are scared of saying things. And when they do say something that may lead to something else, they get all worried and say, oh, please erase that. Don't say that in the book. Don't say that. And you're like, why? What are you worried about? Well, I just don't think that I should say those things. And they're still fearful of what may happen to them. I think it's very sad. But I can relate because I know that's how my grandfather felt, you know? And he didn't know anything. All he did was take a film. He didn't know anything.
Did your father or
I told you
did your father or the other siblings get any sort of harassing phone calls as well, or were they just trying to help Dad?
Oh,
Mama?
no. Yeah. My dad was an only child, and so, no, he never got any. And I asked him that. That's funny. When I wrote my Orville Nix book, I asked him that. I said, hey, Dad, when you and Mom were younger, did anybody ever call and harass you? And he goes, oh, no. Every now and then, you would go to a baseball game because he was a baseball coach, and he'd say, you know, that people would say, wait a minute, aren't you that Nix that took the assassination footage? Oh, you should be ashamed. You would hear that, but you wouldn't hear anybody trying to threaten and go, oh, you're going to die, or don't go out your door, I'm going to run over you. I mean, none of that. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, you know, made to feel like, don't tell people that you were part of it, you know? And then you have, on top of that, people calling people who believe in a conspiracy crazy. So all of us who all of our lives believed that there was more to the JFK assassination than what our government said, were made to look like fools, because if you talk conspiracy, you're automatically considered a tinfoil hat wearer, you know? So
I do have a roll of tinfoil here. I do have a roll of tinfoil on my shelf right here, and that's the roll of tinfoil right there. Roll of tinfoil. You never know.
Oh, we should have made designer. Designer tinfoil.
You never know when it's going to be needed. Never know when this one's going to be needed. Gayle, I'm going to get you to hold on for one moment here, because we're going to go to our first breakout of our night here. Gayle Nix Jackson is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Her website, GayleNixJackson.com, if you want to check out her webpage and see the information that she has going on JFK and the Nix film. Now, there is a lot we can't get into on the Nix film because lawyers are working on it. They want to know where the original film was, where Grandpa's camera was, so on and so forth. But we're going to learn more right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lorian Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard, we will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Professor Joe Uzinski is going to join us. He's a professor at the University of Florida. We're going to talk about how conspiracy theories are made, created, as well as fake news. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Equitemporaneous. Equitemporaneous. Yes, equitemporaneous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio. Hi, everyone on Periscope. We're on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Make that Spaced Out Radio. We are on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, rocking out to some Bumblefoot, watching some great videos from UFO Seekers and Contact TV, as well as reading up on the encounter online, everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking about the JFK assassination and the elusive Nix film, filmed by Orville Nix on that fateful day at Dealey Plaza. The granddaughter of Orville, Gayle Nix Jackson, is our guest tonight. Gayle, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Did your grandfather ever meet Mr. Zapruder?
He never did. And you know what? I've never met Mr. Zapruder's granddaughter, who also wrote a book about her grandfather's film. I have heard, and I'm sorry I've never read it, but I have heard that it pretty much toes the official line, that Oswald acted alone and there was a single bullet that did all kinds of funny contortionistic movements, and she toes the official storyline. And isn't that strange? Her grandfather took a film, and so did mine. Her family has made a living from the Zapruder film for years and years, and my grandfather, no one even knows who he is. I mean, knows his last name or knows that he has a film that is just as important, or at least the House Select Committee said so, and maybe in our own family's minds even more important for what it could show. But we won't know until we find the camera original. Who knows when that'll be, if ever. Some people say I'm crazy to keep looking. They're like, it got shredded a la Oliver North. Or it's probably in someone's safe somewhere. Or maybe someone who was working for the House Select Committee took it. Or maybe someone that was working at the National Archives took it. And all those things could be true. I mean, they could be true. But I still think that there's an answer out there, and I'm not going to give up until I find it.
You are so passionate about this subject. Is this something that, because you were there that day, that this is just something, because you lived it full circle, that you need to see completed? Is that what this drive is in you, Gayle?
You know what? It may be. There may be a part of it. But you know what else it is, Dave? Seriously, I think I told you offline. Maybe it was online. I don't know. I am a bit of an activist, and I don't like that our country's government tells us one thing and does another. And people will look at me and go, oh, you're such a Pollyanna. That's how it goes. Well, why does it have to go to like that? Why do we allow those kind of things to happen? Why? And if any example is a good example of how our government lies to us, it's not only in the JFK assassination, but peel the onion down to its core. Use the Nix film as an example. How can you lose an important piece of history? How come Zapruder's camera was not torn apart and my grandfather's was? Why was his? Is it because he had a fourth grade education? Is it because he worked for the government? Is it because they thought, oh, well, he's not going to do anything about it. He hasn't got any money. He can't afford lawyers to do. I mean, what was it? It doesn't matter. All the reasons the answers to any of those questions would still be circumspect. And I just think that it's important not only to our family's history, but to the American people and the world to know what happened. And if this is what I can do before I die to make things better, well, then this is what I can do. But you know what? I also help homeless dogs and homeless people, and have taught people to read, and was a teacher for many years. I just think it's important to, if you've got any kind of burning passion, to follow it, whatever that may be, unless, of course, it's immoral or illegal. No, I don't go for that. So,
how did this affect your life personally, though?
Oh, honestly, I mean, I forgot to tell you this part. Back from the time I was a little girl, when I started school, my dad would play the copy of our film, because we had a copy. UPI gave us a copy, and we would play it to our history classes every year. So it gave us a little bit of, oh, really? Your grandfather, you were there? Your grandfather was there? I mean, a little bit of that every November. And honestly, it made the history teachers happy, because it was an easy way to talk about that with kids when their classmate was new of it. And then they would share stories that their families had known and were around. Because, I mean, Dallas was obviously much smaller than it is now. And because my dad had shown that film, not only to my classes, most of my friends from high school and junior high and elementary remember that, but my sisters and brothers too. But in 1990, when I went to the FBI, because I knew they had a copy too, I went up there and I said, listen, may I have your copy, because the copy I have is terrible. I mean, that's before I'd gotten the copies back from WTN. And they said, oh, sure, here, let's just let me ask my supervisor, and then we can come back tomorrow. Well, I came back the next day and traded my beat up, spliced up film that my dad had showed every year to classes, and they gave me a version that looked like it had probably hardly ever been seen. And it was a copy. I mean, it was another copy, but yeah. And so I had that for the longest time. And then when I had called in 88 to get the film back, I was working with my dad at that time. I think I'd only been married for 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. And I was working for my dad at that time, as were my sister and brother. And they were just laughing at me. They said, you don't even have a law degree. How are you going to fight these people? I mean, come on, Gayle. Nothing's going to happen with this. And it did. I mean, it did, in that I met Robert Blakey and talked to, my goodness, Dave, so many people all over the world about this. And yeah, have I found the Nix film? No. But do I feel like I get a little closer and a little closer most every time? Yeah. I mean, there's rumors that there is an important man in the JFK field that may have the film. And there are many researchers who have said, Gayle, I saw it at his house. I saw it. Those are rumors. I don't know. I asked that man to his face, and asked his wife as well, and they both denied it. So, I mean, all I can do is ask, and then have attorneys work it out later. And if he does have it, because the man is still alive, if he does have it, I don't know why. There's nothing he can do with it as long as I'm alive, or as long as my kids are alive, or as long as their kids are alive, because it belongs to us, you know. But there are lots of twists and turns throughout this. And because of my grandfather's involvement, I found other things that were weird. I mean, in the JFK, everyone who's even studied it knows there's far too many coincidences and far too many what in it that there's something going on here. I mean, if there's smoke, when you smell the smoke, you know that there's got to be fire. And there's a lot of smoke in this thing. So what makes it difficult for me as a person who is trying really very hard to find the truth, not only for my family, like I said before, in the world, is the people who get involved in this and want to integrate themselves into such a horrific event. I mean, you hear these stories all the time of, oh, I was in jail and I'm the one that shot Kennedy, or, oh, I was this and I was good friends with Marguerite and she told me this. And, you know, that's fine and good. There could be some truth to some of it, but you've got to have evidence to back it up. You know what I mean? You've got to have someone else say, yes, because I was there, yes. But these people that believe these crazy-ass stories that, you know, Jackie pulled a gun and shot her husband, I mean, come on. No. You would have seen that on my grandfather's film. You would have, even in a copy, you would have seen it on the Zapruder film. I mean, there's just no way, that just didn't happen. So those are the things that drive me insane. And being a researcher, it's hard enough to find the truth, but then to have to explain the lies to people that are believable to some, it makes it even harder. And I really believe that that's what the government expected us to do. I mean, I think that was part of the plan. And do you remember, Dave, even in let's see, you would have been in grade school in the 80s, early 80s. Do you remember when your teachers would talk about propaganda? And I don't know, I mean, they were talking to us about propaganda when I was in school, and you would hear these terrible stories about China and about Russia and these poor countries. They don't really know what's going on because their news and the media is only telling them what the government wants them to hear. Well, that's what was happening to us too. And it was when I finally realized that, when I was older, when it finally dawned on me that that's what was going on, it was very sad. I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, no wonder the poor Russians and the Chinese people and think that their countries are all so great and good. They don't know any better. Well, what about us? We're in the same boat. I don't know about your country. I mean, I wouldn't.
Well, for us, it's a little bit. For us, it's a little bit different because, Canadian history really, deals back to the Commonwealth for the first part about it, and then Canada's history really didn't start until 1982 when we became a sovereign nation, even though the country of Canada celebrated its 100th anniversary in 1967. Now, the only real world event that I recall from my schooling was the Challenger explosion. And I remember...
and that was right, yeah.
And I was in grade 7, and I remember our school principal made sure that there were 3 grade 7 classrooms in my school, 2 grade 7 classrooms, pardon me, and he made sure that all of us, that both classrooms had TVs. Remember, they used to wheel the TVs in on those carts, and he made sure that we watched this and what had happened. And that was probably the real first breaking news on our end because, Canada just has a very... and I'm not saying this to gloat, but we have a boring past where, we don't get assassins. We don't get, people, taking out leaders, even though in the 70s there was the FLQ crisis when Quebec tried to separate and they were causing a little bit of terrorism throughout the province at that time. But for my generation, in school, it was the Challenger as well as the first Gulf War a number of years later when I was in grade 12. So it was a little bit different. Now, on 9/11, I remember we kept my ex-wife and I kept our oldest daughter at home, and I had her for a while, as long as she could take it, watch TV and watch that for me. And I was explaining to her that, this is history you're watching. She was 8 years old at that time, and I said, this is history. So I need you to watch this for a little bit. And, she was really good about it. So... yeah. That's just... So
you can imagine then, you know how hard that was being a dad, having your child watch that, because you didn't want to watch it, but you did. You wanted to know that it was history and you didn't. Well, that was the same for us when Jack Ruby shot Oswald. That was on live TV. We were watching it. We watched the whole thing, because in Dallas, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in Dallas, that was it, 24/7. Once the president was shot, the whole news, I mean, you couldn't even watch a cartoon. That's all we wanted to watch were cartoons, and you couldn't do that. I mean, because it was all news stories the whole time. It was like CNN for 63 is what it was like, So, yeah, it was live on television. We saw the whole thing.
Do you mind if I ask you some questions from our audience? Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
No, please.
Continue.
Please. No. I didn't have anything else to say.
Okay. Yeah. This one comes from Shar. She is asking... Are you fighting for your grandfather's honor throughout this?
How nice of her to say that, because, I kind of am. I kind of have taken it upon myself to make amends for what I perceive as mistreatment for my grandfather. Yeah, I am. But also for history. I mean, I feel like I'm doing it not just for my family, but for history too. And thanks for asking me that question, because yeah. And if that's a bad thing to be, oh well, I'm bad. You know.
No, I think
it's kind of noble.
I think it's very honorable. No pun intended.
I think so. Yeah. I don't do it to be honorable, and I don't do it to be noble. I do it because I think it's the right thing to do. You know. Not everybody does what they feel is the right thing to do anymore. Haven't you noticed that?
Oh, yes.
They're scared.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, up here
Yeah.
we're not allowed to open our mouths without being labeled a Nazi now, so.
What did you just say?
We're up here. We got to watch what we say. Otherwise, people are getting labeled as Nazis here.
Nuh-uh.
Yes,
Really?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So it's getting a little ridiculous here, but for the audience, we're going to talk about political correctness tomorrow night with Jamie Sexton on the show. So make sure you.
You know what?
check
I'm
that
going to
out.
have to listen to that because you know that you just mentioned. I was listening. You mentioned him. I would love to talk to that man about conspiracy theories and the whole thing, because I tell you, it's been a fight for me my whole life. I mean, here I am, and I'm not bragging. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying, I'm an educated woman. I've got a master's degree. I taught college English. I've written 2 books. No, it doesn't make me special. It doesn't make me better, but it does make me educated, and it does make me know there are other things out there. And I would love to talk to that man, because I have spent most of my adult life standing up for conspiracy and having people look at me as if I had leprosy, or like I said before, wearing a tinfoil hat. I mean, like I've lost my mind, and I haven't lost my mind. It's the truth. And if anyone would just sit and listen, they would know it's the truth. And the truth is the truth. I mean, it is stranger than fiction most of the time, but the truth is the truth. So anyway, sorry.
Well,
I
Joe-
get on these soapboxes, Dave. You got to
Yeah.
keep me from
That's
it.
okay.
You got to keep me from doing that.
Okay. I just wear tinfoil all the time now. I don't even have a wardrobe anymore. It's just tinfoil. But the whole point that tomorrow night, Joseph Uzinski, what I can do is I can depending on how the interview goes, I can pass your information on to him if you want.
Oh, I would love it. I would love it, really. I would love to talk to him. And it would be great. Wouldn't he be great to have a seminar with a bunch of people who have written about the Kennedy assassination and know about it, or know about, and talk and have a round table? That would be a great thing.
Well,
That'd be awesome.
there is one put on by Lorian Fenton. There is one.
I don't know who that is.
Well,
I'm sorry.
You know
I don't
what?
know who that is.
I will make sure because I'm speaking at her UFO conference in San Francisco next month, and I will make sure that she gets your information.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem. I have another question here from Dawn, who's up in Edmonton, Alberta,
Dawn.
Canada. And she is asking, what do you think, Gayle, was on that original film, or what happened to your copy to upload?
Okay. We never had the camera original, except when my grandfather took it to Time Life and sold it to UPI. Because that's what he did. He sold it to UPI for $5,000. So after that, we didn't have anything but a copy. They had the camera original. And then, of course, the House Select Committee came along in 74, 5, and they were supposed to, or at least the indices of the House Select Committee volumes say in some places they were using the original, and other places it says it was a copy. So we never had the camera original after my grandfather sold it to Time Life, and after Time Life, I'm sorry, I said Time Life, UPI, and after UPI gave it to the House Select Committee, that's the last I can trace it. But here's what I think. I mean, I'm biased because I believe my grandfather, who said that there were shots that came from that area. So if my grandfather was correct, then something should be seen there in the shadows. Now, I want to bring up 2 things that some people don't pay attention to. People like to say, and it's true. I mean, this is true. My grandfather was using the wrong kind of film. He was using indoor film outdoors. Okay. Now, that's understandable that, he screwed up. Okay, he messed up. But when you use indoor film, the film brings more light into the subject matter, right? I mean, that's why you're using indoor film, because it's darker indoors than it is outdoors, right? So an indoor film should bring more light into the picture. But if you watch the copies of my grandfather's film, they're all very dark. That's one thing I want to bring up. Secondly, at the Assassination Records Review Board, which was held in 92, one of the men who testified there was named Moe Weitzman. Now, Moe Weitzman was the film developer who did all the work on the Zapruder film for Time Life when they were going to use it in movies and all the different movies. It was Moe Weitzman who did that work. Well, when the film Executive Action came out, which I believe was 72, it might have been 74, the Nix film is the one that they used for that movie Executive Action. Well, Moe had access to my grandfather's film from UPI. In it, this is what he told the ARRB. I had never heard this story until this happened. He said that when he did the reverse negative, that he told the ARRB, I don't know why everybody's asking about the Zapruder film. The strangest and little film was that Nix film. I remember when I was doing the reverse negative on it, I noticed in the shadows along the fence line a figure that looked like he was wearing a red bandana based on the tonality and looked like he had a metallic something in his hand. And you see him in several frames and then he's gone. You think there's a strange story. And so I was like, oh my God, I had never heard that story in my whole entire life. And there he is testifying as an expert to the Assassination Records Review Board. So maybe that's what's in there, Dawn. Maybe. I don't know. But until we find it, until we find that camera original, none of us are going to know what it is. There you go. That's my answer to that one.
Don's follow-up is, so was the right back of his head blown out if the shot was to come from the left, or the grassy knoll? Is that what happened?
You know what? I don't know. I am no expert on autopsy. I would suggest people read William Matson Law, David Mantic, Doug Horn, any of those. They're experts. I am not. But I will tell you that even if that wasn't the kill shot, which I hate even saying that word, but it's true. Even if there wasn't a kill shot come from the grassy knoll, if the Nix film shows that there was someone up there taking shots, it definitely proves conspiracy. And it definitely proves that we were lied to, you see? So that's important to me. I just finding out, is there someone else up there? And if there's not, there's not. And we can put an end to that big rumor, or that big thought, theory, I guess.
So,
I'm not an expert on ballistics.
No, I understand
autopsy,
that.
Yeah.
Gayle, I understand that you can only take this so far with your own education. You just want to know where the damn film is, and that's what it comes. Right. That's what it comes down to.
That's right.
Where is the film?
Right.
Who do you think has the Nix film?
For years and years and years and years and years, I thought that maybe somebody at UPI may have just kept it after the company went defunct. But then I started researching the House Select Committee and reading in their files. And then I went a step further and called members of the photo panel. And after speaking with them, I thought, what the heck? How can they all say that none of them ever saw the original? Yet Robert Groden, who was there, said that, he saw the original there. Like I said before, there are many, many researchers who know more than me about a lot of this stuff, who think that it was another researcher that took it, that had access to it. And like I said, I asked that person to his face along with his wife's, and he said, no, he didn't. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I mean, do we want to say, when people get upset with me and say, why do you care? Why are you trying to make the government look stupid? Would you rather your government look stupid, or would you rather them look criminal? I mean, which one? Because both of those things fit the answer, you know? Either they were just so inept that they lost it and they didn't take care of it, or they did something criminal. So now, which one do you want your government to be, inept or criminal? Which one? You know, they're both wrong. And the thing is, the House Select Committee did not use due diligence in taking care of not just the Nix film, but there were several other things that came up missing during that time. So they didn't use their due diligence. And I will tell you that Robert Blakey, who was the lawyer over it, and a very nice man, I mean, I know a lot of people don't like him, but he has told me year after year after year, Gayle, if you find out that the House Select Committee is the one, if you find out beyond a shadow of a doubt that the House Select Committee was the last place to have the original Nix film, I will totally take responsibility for it, because it was my committee. Now, that's what he's told me over and over and over. But it's out of my hands now. It's in attorney's hands, and that's always a scary thing. But I love my attorney. He is a very kind man who believes, like I do, that this is just a miscarriage of justice. You know, it's not right, and something needs to be done about it. Somebody needs to be taken to task. In my dream of dreams, Dave, you know, maybe not my sisters or my brothers or my dads or even my kids or even my husband, they would like for the government to be wrong and pay us lots of money. Me, I would really like for them to just give me the film back. I really would, because I would take it to whoever has the best technology in film, whoever, and have them look at it and find an answer to this question. I just want answers to the questions, you know? That's what I want. And until we find it, we're not going to have them. Makes me sad and makes me frustrated and makes me angry.
Yes. Best guess, though, today, where do you think it is?
After writing these books in the last 4 years, these two that I've done, and all these people I've spoken with, I have finally come to the conclusion that it probably is gone, that it's probably just gone. Now, where it went, I don't know, but that it's, like I said earlier, maybe shredded, maybe torn up, maybe, you know, I got, about 5 years ago, when I was writing my Orville Nix book, I got this information from a very, very reliable source, and I can't use his name, and I wish I could, and I can't, who said, Gayle, I spoke with a military man who said that he knows that the Nix film was taken to Rochester the day that your grandfather gave it to the FBI. Well, Rochester is where the CIA did a lot of work on films, and actually they did work for Disney, for Walt Disney up there too. And yeah, that was a harrowing thing too, because I said, well, can't you give me his name? I mean, can't you tell me so I can, because I can't just go by innuendo. I can't just go by rumor. I need to find someone who says yes or no. And he said, well, I can give you the years he was there, and I can give you a list of names, and you can call up there and see if you can find any of them still alive. And I have yet to be able to find any. And it's not that I don't still try, because I do, but it's hard. You know, time is the greatest enemy in all of this, because people die, or they move away, or they change their names, or they don't even want to talk about these times, you know. And if they were part of a intelligence operation, they can't talk about it. I mean, they sign these things saying they can't talk about what they know, you know. So yeah, I'm about, there's a 15% hope in me that it's still alive somewhere, that it's still intact. I said alive, still intact somewhere, like in a safe deposit box or something. But 85% of me thinks that it's been destroyed. I will say this, Dave, and I'll be happy to say it on, and my attorney might get mad at me, but I don't care. If someone does have it, if that researcher does have it, that so many have claimed does, it's not like I'm going to sue you, and it's not like I'm going to have you thrown in jail. Just give me the freaking film back. I mean, just give it back, you know. You can't do anything with it anyway. Just give it to me. So I would just like to say that.
What is
Maybe
have you ever calculated out, Gayle, the financial implications that film would make for you and your family if you were able to get a hold of it?
No, I haven't. And, you know, that's funny that you asked me that, because my sister last week said, Gayle, how much money do you think would that film would have made? And I said, well, I have no idea. I mean, I know that when I had it for the few years that I had it before it went to the 6th floor, how much I licensed it for, I would let researchers and authors who were in the JFK, I would just let them use it for free. But then again, it was a copy. You know what I mean? It wasn't the original. It was a copy. But then big companies like the Today Show or CBS or NBC or any of the big networks who would just use it without even asking, I mean, just, you know, play it, I would make them pay. So I have no idea how much the 6th floor has it now, and I don't know how much they license it for. I do know that the difference between what the Zapruder family has made over the years and what my grandfather, or say even our family, because we only made money on it a couple of years, is the difference between night and day. I would say they're maybe 10,000 to 1 on what we've made, maybe more, maybe 100,000 to 1 that we've made on the film. So it's not like it's a big money maker. What in my opinion, I mean, the way I think about it, I just want, it's history, Dave. It's like, it's history. It's like being, it's just important. It's just important. It's important. Texas history, Dallas history, world history, United States history. It's just important. And like I said before, I know that my grandfather was there for a reason, and I would just like to know what it was. So, there you go. I wonder what it would. My attorney asked me that not too long ago. He goes, Gayle, how are we going to find out how much the film would be worth? And I thought, I have no idea. I mean, how do you put worth on something that we don't even know where it is anymore? And how do we know? I mean, it would be worth one amount of money if it showed nothing. It would be worth another amount if it showed something, right? So how do you do that? I don't even know. Any appraisers out there listening, or anybody who's got any idea of how to figure that out, I would please get in contact with me. I have no idea what it's worth. So I know that it's got to be worth at least half of what Zapruder's would worth, wouldn't you think?
Could mean more if there is real evidence, if it's analyzed properly from the original copy.
Right.
It could be worth more if it shows a second shooter.
See, that's what I think. But how are you going to put a value on that when you don't have it? I mean, it's very hard, which makes it hard in the lawsuit too, don't you know? It makes it hard too. So
very understandable.
I know for my family, it's invaluable.
So let me ask you this then, because I know you have to be careful, because there is a lawsuit underway right now between your family and the United States government regarding this film and the whereabouts. So are you suing for just the film, or are you suing for damages as well?
No, just the film. Just the film. I just want to know what they did with my film. What did they do with my grandfather's film, which now is my film? What did they do to it? You know, where did it go? And who lost it? And who was the last to see it? And who is responsible for not being responsible? You know, I want to know. I want to know who the last person was to see it. So, think I should be suing for damages? I don't know.
Why not?
I am not the litigious type. We're not real litigious people. I mean, I've never sued anybody before. So I don't know. But I do want answers, and not just for me, for everyone. I mean, yeah, for me in a biased way, because it's my family, but for the rest of the world too. I mean, I'm not going to hide anything. If we get money from the government, I'm going to let people know. If the government says this is what happened to it, I'm going to let everyone know. I'm not going to hide any of it, you know?
Are you able to...
We're open books over here.
Are you able to comment on whether or not there has been responses from the government regarding this?
Oh, yes. Many. Pages and pages. Yes. And, gosh, I wish I could talk because one of them is so funny you would just start laughing. One of the questions that they raised, and wow. I will tell you this. God, can I say it? I don't know if I can say it or not. There was a question as to whether or not Orville Nix was really there that day. Come on. I mean, come on. So, I mean, they're really reaching for straws, a lot of it. It makes my attorney laugh, and if he laughs, then I laugh. So, you know.
Attorneys cost money, though. And I'm just wondering, is your attorney, doing this for the sake of history, or are you out of a big financial burden because of this and this this mission you're on?
No, and isn't that okay? I told you I wasn't going to proselytize. I wasn't going to get all, on air. But there are many times in my life, and I'm sure it's happened to y'all too. I mean, maybe you call it something else. Maybe you call it serendipity. Maybe you call it, but where angels, in my opinion, come into your life. And this attorney, and he's in Washington, and he's a very well-known attorney. And he came into my life and he said, listen, I'm an attorney. I would love to take your case. And I thought, oh, yeah, okay. I mean, you get PR people saying, look, I want to be your PR person. Look, I want to be, like, I don't have any money. If you're looking at me as something to make you lots of money, it's not going to happen. I mean, no. So I kind of avoided him. I mean, I was nice. I said, oh, I appreciate your, and kind of let it go. Didn't really talk. Well, he kept calling and calling. He said, listen, Gayle, listen, my name is, and he told me his name, told me everything he was doing. He said, I'm not doing this to make any money. I'm doing this because I want to help your family. I think this is wrong. And I don't understand why another attorney hasn't come to your aid in the past. And I want to help. And so, no, I'm not paying him. No. I mean, do I pay him when he has to file whatever they're called? What do they call? File a
motion,
court orders and things.
Yes.
Yeah. When he has to file things to the court, it's usually like $300 or $400 that you got to pay. We'll do that because, geez, I don't want him taking money out of his own pocket. I mean, I'm not rich, but gee, I don't want him to go broke trying to help us. So yeah, we'll do that. But no, I mean, he's doing this out of the same reason I am. I mean, because it's history and it's important and we need to know. And there are a lot of people that feel the same way I do. I wish there were more. I wish there were a lot more people that felt like I do, but there's not. And I understand. I mean, there's so many things wrong in the world. I mean, this is just little compared to all the bad things in the world, but it's a big thing to me. And it's a big thing to him. And, my story, my family story, my grandfather's story, it's never changed over the years. Since 1963, it's the same. It's all the people I've talked to will tell you the same too. Robert Blakey, Dr. Clyde Snow, Dr. Rutling, Vincente Fox's, the ex-senator from Texas, Phil Graham, who's passed away since. I mean, I talked to so many people trying to get them to help me, and I just couldn't. And trying to get politicians to help you, oh, please. I mean, that is really hard, really hard. I have yet to ever be able to say for Mr. Blakey, and he's not really a politician. I mean, he's a lawyer, He teaches, I think, Notre Dame. I don't know if he still does or not, but he did.
Okay,
it's been a long journey.
Yes, let's say that you are able to get your hands back on this film. Okay, never mind the money that people are going to start throwing at you. What do you want to see done with that film? Does it go in a museum? Does it go to the highest bidder? What do you plan on doing with it?
No, I would love for it to go in a museum, but not to the 6th floor. I would love for it to go to a museum and not the National Archives. To some place, maybe a college, maybe a university, where it could actually, people could study it and see the history of the whole thing. But first, if I were fortunate enough to get the camera original back, the very first thing I would do is find the best technology I could find, the best, and have it analyzed. That's what I would do first. And no matter what was found from then on, yes, donate it to some place where we could teach about our history, where we could let future generations see and do, that's what I would do. That's what I would do.
See,
I think that would make my grandfather so happy. He had no education, and there's a film that he made that could educate people the rest of their lives. I mean, for future generations,
Yeah, see what I see in the copy, and I think this might be the reason. I don't know. Just looking at this from an outsider and out of country perspective, to me, the reason why it seems like they haven't, released or given you back that film is there's so many different faces on that film compared to Zapruder. It's closer. It's right there. You know what I'm saying? It's right there. And I'm wondering if maybe there were some, when they start identifying people, which happens when you get close-ups, people start saying, what's that all about? Who is this person? Why is that person standing that way? When they start analyzing it, I'm wondering if then what happens is that maybe there are some people in there that the government doesn't want to come out, whether they're mobsters or government hitmen themselves.
Right. And that's a huge, you know what? I've thought that myself. I've thought there's got to be something. Okay, Dave, there's got to be something for the film, not only for the film to be missing, okay, but I know that I keep harping on this. When they tore up my grandfather's camera, in those old-timey cameras from the 60s, the timing mechanism was a spring, okay, just a spring. The spring, when it came, my dad went with my grandfather to pick up the camera from the FBI. It came in a box and was rattling around, and my dad was driving, and my grandfather was carrying the box. No, I'm sorry. My grandfather was driving, and my dad was carrying the box, and he's like, Dad, why is it making noise in here? I mean, I think there's something. He goes, what are you talking about, Junior? Because my dad's a junior. And he said, I hear noises in here, and they opened it up, and that's when they saw that there were all of these little pieces. I mean, they had taken it apart, and the spring was bent. I mean, and if that's the timing mechanism, I have tried to analyze this in my head, I mean, over and over and over. Why would they bend the spring? Why? There's so many questions to ask here. And again, why did no one else's camera get torn up like this? Why only my grandfather's, And you know what else is strange? In 64, for the Warren Commission, it was the Nix film that they used for distances and that the Secret Service used to do reenactments. It was the Nix film. It wasn't the Zapruder film. It was the Nix film. Now, why? There's too many whys, and I get tired of all the whys. And the more I learn, the more whys there are, and someone's going to have to answer some of them, Sooner or later, somebody's going to have to answer some of these whys.
Where's the camera now?
The camera was torn up. I mean, I've got the receipt. I've got the receipt where the FBI paid for him a new one. And the one they replaced it with, the one they replaced my grandfather's camera with, is now at the 6-4 museum. But, no, the original it's gone. I mean, it was torn up. So, the original camera. So when my grandfather, when he said, you guys, I just bought this camera in May. I was going to use it, for the next few years to take pictures of my kids when we go on vacation. And I said, well, give us that one back and we'll buy you a new one. And I've got the receipt for the new one they purchased him from Keystone.
Did you throw out the other one, or was the other one thrown out then? Or is it in the museum?
No, they took it. No, the FBI took it back when they said that, give it back and we'll buy you another one.
Okay, so they took the pieces back. They shipped it back, broke it.
Right.
And then they said, well, we screwed up. Let us buy you a new camera. We'll take the old one back.
Right.
Well, that's convenient.
Right. There you go.
That's very convenient.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it? And like I said, my grandfather didn't have an attorney. I mean, he was doing the patriotic thing and doing, well, okay, he never thought his government would lie to him, ever. Ever. I mean, if I had said those things to him when he was alive, he probably would have never spoken with me again, because he didn't believe in those things. I mean, why would our government lie to us? They don't have any reason to. This is the best government in the world, yada, yada, yada. I mean, but they did all these things. They did these things to him that he didn't know. I mean, well, like I said, he passed away in 1972, so he didn't know that his film was missing. You know, he knew that they had torn up his camera. He knew that they'd given him another one. So, yeah, it's all a big conundrum. It's kind of like there's so many of them. Was Oswald in Mexico or was he not? Did people know he was there or were they not? Is the Nix film missing or is it not? Did Jack Ruby know Oswald or did he not? Did General Walker know Oswald? Was George Morenchill part of the CIA or was he not? I mean, all these questions and no one wants to answer them. And if you ask those questions, then you're thought of as like, well, what do you care? But if people didn't care, they wouldn't be asking the questions. And if this wasn't still important, there wouldn't still be people going to conferences and talking and wanting to know about it. It's the modern day mystery. Agatha Christie couldn't have written a better one, you know? And I don't know who did it.
It's cover up after cover up.
Yes, it is. And honestly, I think that what happened is, I mean, this is just opinion, okay? I've got no proof, so it's just straight up opinion. But it was a cover-up of a cover-up, just what you just said. I mean, I think that there were things in play that didn't work out the way that they should have, so they had to cover up this, and then something else happened and they had to cover up that. And it's like a lie. You know how when you tell a lie, then you got to tell another one and another one and another one. And sooner or later, the truth is lost in there somewhere. But if you dig around in all those lies and peel them apart, you come down to where the truth really is, you know, and find out it was a lie.
True enough.
So,
and the other thing that I think we need to look at here, too, is the death trail that follows from CIA operatives getting killed, mob people getting killed, Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby coming down. Yes, he was in jail, but he was covering up for the mob. Dorothy Kilgallen, her assistant. There's a lot of death surrounding this entire case as they really were shutting up a lot of people and ending trails.
They really
abruptly.
were. And the strangest ones to me, and I know I revert to the House Select Committee. So many people talk about the Warren Commission, but for me, I've done most of my research for the Nix film through the House Select Committee. But look who died there and committed suicide during that time. George de Morenchill and Carlos Prios Sequeiros, who was the ex-president of Cuba. You know, he killed himself too. I right before he was to testify. So why? What did these people? Why? And why did they wait so long? And you know, this is of course right after Watergate, and there were so many of the Watergate burglars who were mentioned in the Kennedy assassination, who were working with the CIA, and maybe some of them were FBI informants, but were, you know, part of the Watergate cover-up. Same names. And I don't think many people realize that either. I don't think that they know that Frank Sturgis in Watergate is Frank Fiorini in the JFK assassination. Bernard Baker, Tracy Barnes. I mean, there's so many of them. It's just same thing with the Robert Kennedy assassination. There's the same names. You keep seeing them. Same with Martin Luther King. And that we're having assassinations in the 60s here is nothing new. I mean, because our government, and yes, it was our government, was assassinating leaders in foreign countries, you know? So why would it not happen here when we were doing it all over? It's just sad, and it's just terrible. And I never knew those things when I was younger. It took many years of researching before I found out all those things and how they were all connected. And the thing is, I mean, a lot of the deaths like you're talking about, a lot of them are conjecture because you don't really know. But a lot of them you do know, and they are proven. And those are the ones that need to be brought up to the government. Hey, why did this happen? And what did this guy know? And why is he now dead? And, you know, those are the things that people need to ask. Use the evidence. There's plenty of it.
Did you ever look into the situation with Dorothy Kilgallen?
No, but I know many people that have, and it is quite interesting. I mean, I think that there's a book out about it, but no, I don't know.
Mark Shaw.
I'm not well versed enough to talk about it. Yeah.
No, and I understand that, but do you think, from what you do know, because we've had Mark Shaw on this show a couple of times, who wrote the book about Dorothy Kilgallen, do you think that she was close to breaking that story, that there was more shooters?
It could have been. I believe there were more shooters, so yeah, it could have been. It surely could have been. I mean, but how are we ever going to know, you know? They were pretty good at covering up a lot of this stuff, weren't they? Her whole story getting covered up. Yeah. And of course the naysayers would like to say, well, okay, she was drinking, or she had, barbiturates. I think isn't one of what the naysayers say, but the fact of the matter is she was an investigative reporter, and she was onto something that the government didn't want us to be onto. And being as how the media, where most of them were their little watchdogs, they put an end to all of it, you know? So I don't know who killed her or who, but it's sad to think that could happen. And it's sad to think it could happen now, but it does. I mean, maybe not as much as it did back then. Maybe we're all smarter now and we realize that these are the things that could happen, but it scared my grandfather and my grandmother. It scared the people that I've talked to for the second book. They don't want to talk about it anymore. They're scared. And what could scare you that much? I mean, what could scare you? You know, fear of losing members of your family, fear of losing your livelihood, fear of losing payoff money that you've been given to be quiet. I mean, I don't know, you know. For my grandfather, it was fear that some crazy person was going to do something to one of his grandkids or his wife or his only son, you know. And let's be honest, okay, Dave, there are crazies out there who think, well, if you believe in the JFK conspiracy, then you need to be done with, because you're one of the problems in America. You're one of the problems in the world. There are those people out there, you know. And they think that you're, like I've said before, unpatriotic, and you don't care about the country because you're saying that something happened that shouldn't have happened. We're not supposed to cover up.
I hear you. I'm going to cut you off right there, Gayle, because we got to step out for our second break of the night. Hard to believe we're already through 2 hours of this 3-hour show. Gayle Nix Jackson is our guest tonight. Her website, GayleNixJackson.com. You can order your hardcover book right on her website about the JFK assassination and the Orville Nix story. I highly suggest you do. We're going to go for one more hour here, and the thought of the Dave coming up as well in hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio after this.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Linda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF 82017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. And on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Don't forget, after the show, you can join me on periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to hang out, chat with you guys, and, play some music, rock out a little bit. We've been doing that the last few nights, so I'm going to do that after tonight's show. So if you care to join me, I'd love to have you there. So you got to sign in to periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the program, Joseph Uzinski is going to join us. He is a professor at the University of Miami. He deals in conspiracy theories as well as fake news. We're going to learn all about it tomorrow night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on the Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Equitemporaneous. Equitemporaneous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are live on periscope.tv. We are on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio to connect with me. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more at spacedoutradio.com. For the final time tonight, we introduce the granddaughter of Orville Nix. Yes, we are talking JFK and the elusive and disappearing Nix film. The granddaughter, Gayle Nix Jackson, has been with us all night tonight. She is going the distance as we are talking JFK. Now, right during the break, you started mentioning to me that there is a bunch of new information that is coming out recently over the last 10, 20 years, Gayle. I would love for you to fill in the audience with that.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. And I would like to say to your listeners, if you haven't heard about the Nix film, would you feel free to contact me, come to my website, call me. I would love, the more people that know, maybe that we could get a bigger voice out there trying to find the original film. I would love it. I would just like to say that. So, the new information I was talking about, other than the files, I mean, so far the JFK files that have been released have been pretty generic, and they don't tell us anything that we didn't already know. But they did, they have proven things that we did know, like that Earl Cabell, the mayor of Dallas, was a CIA informant. Well, of course, I mean, his brother Charles was the man that President Kennedy fired. So, I mean, we've known that for years. But what I was talking about, and yeah, this is a shameless plug for my new book, Pieces of the Puzzle, but in thinking of my grandfather, and after I wrote the book, I had many, many people contact me. Some of them were so helpful. Others of them were, trying to be helpful, but others had information about things about the Kennedy assassination that no one had ever heard before. And honestly, Dave, when people contact you like that, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, are you going to get, there were people in the trees shooting down at the motorcade. I mean, were there, are you going to get things that are kind of like so far out there that there's not even answering it? But one story that I got was from a man named Alan Trent that lived in the Dallas area, and his next door neighbor and dear friend for many years, name was David Surrey. David Surrey was the son of Robert Surrey, who was the aide-de-camp, I guess you could say, for General Walker. Now, those who aren't familiar with General Walker, he was the man who President Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy had put in an insane asylum, had put under psychiatric care after the Mississippi riots, the riots in Mississippi at Ole Miss. There was no whatsoever between General Walker and the Kennedys, but General Walker was a golden boy for the military. So President Kennedy was at odds with, in his administration, he was at odds with many, many people and many, many government sources, organizations, and some of the military loved him. Maxwell Taylor, I mean, I think Robert Kennedy named one of his kids after Maxwell Taylor, but Maxwell Taylor was also one of General Walker's dearest friends, taught him at West Point and stayed friends forever. In fact, had a lot to do with many of his appointments later in life. But I digress. David Surrey was Robert Surrey's son. Robert Surrey worked for General Walker, as did his wife. He's the one that put out those ads that said wanted for treason, those little pamphlets that were all over Dallas the day that Kennedy came. That was Robert Surrey. Robert Surrey also was the secretary of the American Nazi Party. And I don't know that a lot of people know that. But anyway, this Alan Trent said, Gayle, I know that you don't know who I am. I want you to see this video that I took of my friend, David Surrey. And I said, wait a minute, is that Robert Surrey, David Surrey? He goes, yes. And then I said, sure, I'll come watch it. So my husband and I went to his home and watched this video. And my heavens, Dave, oh my God. I'm watching it and I'm looking at my husband like, okay, this can't be real. This just can't be real. But David Surrey sits on that video saying that when he was a little kid, kind of like me, when I was a little kid and during the Kennedy times, that he and his younger brother were at General Walker's house fairly often. And one of the things that they used to do with General Walker was go rifle shooting, which they thought was really cool because they were running around with their dad and running around with General Walker. And one of their jobs was picking up the shell cartridges, the spent cartridges from the rifles that they were shooting. Well, one of the men, this is what the Surrey boys told me and what it said on this video, one of the men that would go shooting with them was Lee Harvey Oswald. Is that craziness or what?
That is
and
odd.
one, yeah, and that their job as little kids was to pick up the spent shells. What would be the reason for that? This is Texas, for heaven's sakes. Everybody in there has a rifle and spent cartridges that were in the 60s, please. I mean, it was all over the place. So what would the reason be to have these kids picking up spent cartridge shells? I mean, when you think about the spent cartridge shells at the Texas School Book Depository that were found, you think about, things like that. I mean, could they have been connected? I don't know, but it's a little strange. And what makes it even stranger is that they weren't at a shooting range doing this. They were out in the woods, doing this. And they said that they both had learned after so long of picking up hot cartridge shells and burning their fingers that they started bringing like a tarp to put underneath so that when they picked them up, they'd let them sit there for a little bit and then pick them up, to cool off a bit. That's one of the stranger stories that I can pretty much verify. It's shocking. It's just shocking. And I've always felt that General Walker, there was something going on there because, Lee Harvey Oswald was suspected of taking a shot at him on April 10th of 1963. Well, it's very odd that General Walker never thought that it was Oswald at all, but I'll tell you what's even odder. General Walker was head of a militia called the Minutemen that was like a vigilante group in the Dallas area, kind of a mixture of Nazis, KKK guys, and just vigilantes. And the Minutemen were a secret group, much like when you think of the Masons or when you think of John Birch Society. No one really told each other they were Birchers, but they were all together at these meetings. Anyway, there was a film that Harold Weisberg, one of the first generation researchers ever, had seen and never even thought anything about it, but it showed in 63, and April of 63 has had to have been when it was taken, because it was showing this man's name that took the film's name was John Martin. It showed General Walker's home with the bullet holes in it. And then the next scenes that you see is of Lee Harvey Oswald handing out the Cuban pamphlets there in New Orleans. Now, what is this man who is friends with General Walker, who served underneath him in the Army? What is he doing at General Walker's house and then just happens to be, in New Orleans when Lee Harvey Oswald is passing out Cuban pamphlets? I mean, what is that? It's just strange. And so the sons tell me all these great stories that I've put in the book about the things they knew about Oswald. And honestly, there's parts of it that I think, that can't be. I mean, maybe it's just his memory, because in one part of the video, he calls Marina Martina, and another part he calls, he says that Lee Harvey Oswald's son. Well, Lee Harvey Oswald didn't have a son. He had 2 daughters, but he also talks about a home that his dad and a family called the Assyrians and a single man who was a Dallas motorcycle cop were building in Oklahoma. And this building that they were building, this home that they were building, had turrets, and it had holes in there. Like when you're watching the old John Wayne movies and the old Western movies, and there's holes in the wall where you can stick your gun out and shoot whoever's coming to raise havoc on you. Well, they had those. And so I thought, well, okay, if this is true, surely I can go look up tax records. I can go find out if ever even this house existed. Well, by heavens, Dave, it's there. It is there. There's a house, and the people in Oklahoma called it the Doomsday House and said that the people who owned it there were kind of crazy. The only other thing that is a little odd about all of this, and not as if that isn't odd enough, all that I just told you is very odd and very strange, but it can be proven, was that H.L. Hunt owned a lot of the land up there. And there are many people who believe that H.L. Hunt and the rich oil men in Dallas, which there were plenty in Dallas and Fort Worth, had a part to do with this. I have no doubt that they funded the gun running and funded, but as far as the assassination, I don't know. It could be that they were part of it, but that's brand new information that no one has ever heard of. Another one is Doug Campbell, who had written a chapter in the book and is a dear friend too, wrote about a rifle that Lauren Hall and Jerry Hemming had. And not only was it in Miami, but it was in California. And it honestly could have been one of the rifles that were used on November 22nd. And maybe you can have him on sometime and he can talk to you about it. The reason why I wrote this book is because I was thinking of my grandfather and how he quit talking. Remember I told you earlier he had just quit talking. I mean, Mark Lane was the only interview he really did with a researcher. And then after 67 and that debacle, that was it. I mean, like I said, he wouldn't even go to the Garrison trial. He didn't do any of that. So I wondered how many other people there were like this. And so I started going through the research and looking up people in the Warren Commission and seeing if I'd seen any more about them later. And 2 or 3 names kept popping up. And one was Larry Schmidt, who is the man who put the Welcome Mr. Kennedy ad in the paper that morning, the black bordered paper. One was him, his friend Bernard Weissman, and then Father McCann. And so I spent the next 2.5, 3 years finding these people and interviewing them over and over. And so the pieces of the puzzle book talks about them and about what they were doing. And Father McCann is a wonderful, lovely man. And many of the Time Life investigative reporters felt that he was important because during the Garrison trial and the Warren Commission, they could never find him to talk to him. And honestly, it was hard to find him. I found him, but it was hard to do. And without giving away everything in the book, I will tell you that he was friends with Sylvia Odio and several other important people. But Sylvia Odio is people of the JFK assassination know of. She's the one that said that Lee Harvey Oswald and 2 Mexicans came to her door at night, one night. And the Warren Commission could never make heads or tails of it because it kind of ruined their timeline of the heavyset man being in Mexico at the time that they said was Oswald. So anyway, I talked to Father McCann, who was friends with her, and he has a lot to say, but I suffice it to say that he says the man that was there, him, is no longer around. So, and what I'm trying to get to is many of these people who were there on the periphery of the JFK assassination, or who knew things, or who were hounded by the FBI or the Secret Service or the CIA, whomever. I mean, they have gone into these little, like, self-contained exiles. You know what I mean? Except for Larry Schmidt. Now, Larry Schmidt, who ran the Welcome Mr. Kennedy ad, get this, after he ran the Welcome Mr. Kennedy ad, he went down to Cuba and worked for one of the anti-Castro groups. How do you do that? I mean, how do you run with General Walker's crowd and the John Birch Society and help get John Tower elected and help get all these people elected in Dallas and a PR, and then go to Miami as the only white guy? I mean, that's what he said. And everybody else was Cuban. He was the only gringo there, and work for the MRR, who was CIA supported. Then he went to Las Vegas and knew a lot of the people who were involved in the mafia, Robert Mayhew and Howard Hughes, and the people that were on the periphery of that group, knew all of them. I just think it's strange. He's like a modern-day Forrest Gump, except he's not crazy. You know, he's not mentally deficient. I mean, he's a guy like me and you. So there's lots of things like that that are important in this book that have never been talked about. Steve Rowe, who is a wonderful man and who wrote a chapter, he believes that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. But he wrote a chapter for my book and talks about the Nazi influence and the White Citizens Council influence in Dallas, and how that may have had something to do with all of it too. So even if you do believe that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, and there are many people that do, you can't deny that the atmosphere, the social, economic, cultural atmosphere of Dallas at that time was just teeming with opportunity to do something horrible and terrible, you know? So anyway, those are the things I wanted to kind of mention to you, because the General Walker information is really important, as is the Surrey sons. I mean, no one has ever talked to them. And, you know, their dad was the one in the Warren Commission who pled the Fifth over 50 times. 50 times in the Warren Commission, he pled the Fifth. So I think it's just really interesting. And I think that several of these people, like I said, Father McCann reminds me a lot of what my grandfather went through. Larry Schmidt doesn't. Bernie Weissman reminds me of a lot of what my grandfather went through. These are just people who were in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know? Or in some of them, maybe knew more than they want to tell people that they knew. Anyway, each of the chapters, it's not one of those books where you have to read the whole thing and go, I have to read chapter after chapter. You don't. Each chapter is standalone and tells a different story. And the thematic trail through them all is the JFK assassination. So it's really very interesting from a historical standpoint. If it's one of those things that you know a lot about the JFK assassination, this will give you more information because it's never been shared before. So it would help you there. And if you don't know, then just in the interest of how there is a parallel between the political atmosphere of Dallas and what's going on in America right now with the Trump administration, it's there. You can see it. So I'm pretty proud of the book. I think it's pretty good. And I didn't write it on my own. Like I said, I wrote most of it. But the people who wrote it, I forgot to talk about James Wagenborg. He was the one who worked for Time Life. He talks about how the Justice Department, the Robert Kennedy Justice Department, came to Time Life and essentially had them pay off one of the witnesses against Jimmy Hoffa in the Hoffa trial, Ed Parton. The Justice Department didn't pay him off because that would have been against the law, but they did have Time Life pay him for his testimony to convict Jimmy Hoffa. And he's got information about all that. I just think it's all very interesting. History, I was an English professor for years and years. I mean, I may not sound like it right now, but I was. But history is really, really very interesting. And this Pieces of the Puzzle book is awesome, in my opinion. It tells you so much about Dallas and about the people that you may not know much about in it. So thank you for letting me talk about it. I appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem. That's kind of what we do around here. Did you learn anything new from the JFK files that were released earlier this year?
No, but it's very strange to me that two of these men that I just talked about this book, some of their files are still redacted and still not released. Father McCann's and Larry Schmidt. You'll find that they're not released. So why not? Is it because they're both still alive? Maybe, I don't know. But no, there's been no smoking gun. But I mean, why would we expect there to be? You know what's a bigger smoking gun to me, and is all the FOIA, and I have a stack of it. Freedom of Information Act records that I've gotten over the years. Some of those I've asked for in the past, and they said, again, I mean, I should say I've repeatedly asked, and I've already gotten them once, but repeatedly asked again, and was told that they were classified. So I'm wondering how many Freedom of Information Act files that people ask for, like Harold Weisberg was the best at it. Mary Farrell, I mean, those first-generation researchers were really good at it. How many of those files did they have that now are no longer available to anyone? I think that's what's more interesting myself, like, did some of the files they released before under the Freedom of Information Act, did someone come in later and say, oh my gosh, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? I mean, is it, I think that's all really interesting. And it would be nice if everybody would say, oh, well, I've got this and their Freedom of Information Act file, and see if it correlates to the ones that have been released. That's what's more interesting to me, because I just really don't think we're going to find anything in those. I just don't. Why would they? Those things have been sanitized for years,
True, but it was kind of interesting that at the last moment, or last possible moment, that the FBI and the rest of the alphabet groups were able to get some files, from being released,
right.
so that way they could review them again.
Right.
Like, how many times have they been...
review them? That's why we... Right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you.
No worries.
That's
no worries.
Right. Why do they need to be reviewed again? If they would just give us an answer, if they would say, well, because these people are still alive and we don't want to impinge on their privacy. I could live with that, couldn't you? I could live with that. But if it's things that doesn't have anything to do with that, then no. It all needs to be out there. Every bit of it needs to be out there.
Do you think there's maybe one of those...
holding it back? It's 55 years ago.
I understand that, but do you think maybe one of those files that's held back is what happened to your grandfather's film?
I sure do. And I don't know that we're ever going to find it. One thing I did, and this has only been, I don't know if I can talk about this. Hold on. Let me think about this for a minute. 6 months ago. Yeah, I can't talk about it. But I will tell you this. I talked to a person who was a legal person for the House Select Committee, because a memo had been found that showed that they were wanting to take the original Nix film, camera original, to a developer in New York to have copies made. So that tells me the original was still around during the House Select Committee days. And when I called this person who's still alive and asked them, what do you remember about this and what do you know? All of a sudden, they know nothing. Nothing. Okay? But want to talk to me about the Zapruder film, and you want to talk about the Zapruder film, I'll be happy to talk about that, but I don't remember anything about the Nix film. Always. It's like the rote answer, they always have the same answer. I don't remember. I don't know anything about the Nix film. But I can talk about the Zapruder film. So, yeah. Yep. I would love to tell you the name, and I would love to tell you all the details, but I can't. So, but it suffices it to say, that memo has never been sent to me. I mean, it was found by someone else. And when I asked for all my Freedom of Information files, and I'm talking back in the 90s, early 90s, after the JFK movie came out, that's when I jumped on the bandwagon, and I have stacks and stacks. And I went through, and it's not in there. That memo is not in there. Yet, when another person asked for the memo, asked for the same thing, Orville Nix, Freedom of Information, that person got this memo. Now, how can that be? How can that be? So, yeah, there may be. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Some information as to what happened to it. I would love to see that. But the National Archives assures me and my attorney that there's nothing. They've got no documentation and no film at the National Archives.
Does the Smithsonian have anything?
Nope. And one of the things about the National Archives is they have several satellite offices wherever, and the photographic material for the longest, and I believe still is, was held in the Maryland branch. So I went through there too, thinking, well, okay, maybe they didn't know. Do you know that there was a branch of it here in the Dallas area? And in I want to say 90, 91, they came through and grabbed everything that was in the Dallas area division and took it up to the National Archives in Washington. And I know this because I spoke with the archivist who was working there at the time, who told me that that's what they did. So, see, just all kinds of subterfuge. And why? I mean, I think that's what bugs me the most. It's kind of like when your kid does something innocent. Let's just say because you're kids. I mean, it's your kid. No, Mom, I didn't eat the last cookie. And you go in there into the room and you see cookie crumbs everywhere. It's the same thing. I mean, working with these files and with the government, and they're telling you one thing, but you see evidence of something else, and you point that out to them, and you would think they'd say, okay, I'm busted. All right, I did it, Mom. I ate the cookie. You would think the government would say, okay, yeah, these files, I mean, here it is. But they won't. They're not going to do it. So what could it be? I mean, what could it be that scares the government so from sharing the truth with the people? What is it? I mean, I've got my ideas, don't you, as to what it could be, but I don't know. Why are they so scared, Well,
it's the same fear they have over UFOs in Roswell.
Well, there you go.
What came out of that? I mean, there's so many secrets that are being carried out, that they have to keep challenging the story and hiding the story. It's the only way that they are going to be able to keep a lid on things from their own screw-ups and their own screwing of the American people. In both instances.
Don't you think it's sad, though? I mean, they look at us like we are so stupid and we can't handle it. It reminds me of that Jack Nicholson movie, A Few Good Men. We can't handle the truth. I believe that that's the mindset of many of these people. They look at us and say, you can't handle the truth, so we're going to keep it from you. I mean, they really look at us like we're that stupid. That bugs the heck out of me.
But hold on
I'm
a
not
second
stupid.
here. They're preventing, in their minds, a revolution. Because if the American people back then, or even now, probably not so much now, even though there's way more armament available, they're preventing a revolution from happening where people literally, the American Republic, the people enact themselves in their own militia to overthrow and overrun the White House. That's what they're enacting.
Which is why, I mean, see what I told you earlier about the parallel? That's why General Walker had developed the Minutemen, their own militia, their own vigilantes. I mean, I really think that there could be some truth to that. I don't know any organized people that would do that now. And honestly, I think everybody is so concerned about their own little lives and their own little things that's going on in their own little worlds that they don't want to be a part of something bigger. They don't want to rock the boat. I mean, they're just trying to make their money and raise their family and hope that everything works out okay, So it's all very sad, and I suppose that's why so many dystopian movies are made these days about how things are going, when really and truly, I mean, maybe someone ought to make a movie about how things could be better if we would just work together and, you know, try and make it better. I mean, this is Black History Month in America. And so, you know, Martin Luther King, he was right. I mean, we all need to be working together. We don't need to be looking at, and I know I'm going to sound like a hippie, and I know I'm going to sound like a Pollyanna, but we don't need to look at how skinny or how fat or how white or how black or how brown someone is, or are they a female or a male. We all just need to say, okay, we've had enough of this and we want it to stop. Okay, we've had enough. Stop. Yeah, you know, that's what we all need to do. But I just don't know where we're going to find any leader that'll make that happen, you know?
No, I fully understand.
Some people feel like Trump is.
Well, I mean, you know, it doesn't matter who is in or who isn't. The fact is, we do know that there are certain things that each president is, you know, given a thorough talking to about, JFK being one of them.
Right.
Roswell and aliens being the other one, and all my listeners who are like, oh my God, Dave can throw aliens into any topic. Yes, it's true. It is true. It is true. I love me some alien talk. I have a couple questions from Gloria here, if you don't mind.
Okay. I love it that all of the listeners are female, Dave. All your listeners love your guts.
Oh, that I have a very attractive fan base. Very attractive.
Yeah.
Very attractive.
Yeah, I love it. Okay.
Except for BTO. He's a New York Mets fan, and I'm a Yankees fan. So, you know, he's not as attractive to me, you know, but that's another thing. Let's get to Gloria's question.
Hey,
yes.
Okay, but wait. Tell your friend BTO that my little brother played for the Mets in the minor leagues out of high school. But anyway, but he didn't go to the majors, but yeah. I thought you just cool. Okay, go ahead.
One of the I'll tell a quick baseball story now. One of the kids that my dad used to be very, very much into softball, slow pitch in our town, and one of the guys he played with, his son got a baseball scholarship to Purdue, and in the year 2001. He was drafted, I think, by the Arizona Cardinals or the Arizona Diamondbacks or somebody like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who he was drafted by. And all of a sudden, because he was Canadian, 9/11 happened. He could not get a green card to go play minor league ball. And his baseball career ended because of
that fact.
9/11. Yeah. As sad as that sounds. And I can always throw a 9/11 conspiracy into something too. But, you know, that's something. All right, let's get to Gloria's question. She is asking, and she's got two of them. Gayle, have you ever been invited to speak at the Kennedy Assassination Convention in Dallas? It's usually a 2 to 3 day event.
The Lancer? Is that the one she's talking about? Because I spoke there in 2014.
I guess so.
I don't know. Is that the one? I'm not really big on conferences. I would much rather talk face to face or in a small setting or in front of classrooms. And I have spoken at the University of Virginia. In fact, I'll probably let me a shameless plug again. This book that I was just telling you about, they're using it as classroom reading material for the college there at the University of Virginia this next fall. So I really think that to get the word out, we need to get to a new generation. We need to get to a younger group that will carry on because none of us are getting any younger, you know? And so I like speaking in front of colleges or in front of groups like that. But tell Gloria that, yes, I spoke at Lancer, and I was invited to the assassination up in Maryland. Records Committee. No, I can't remember. Isn't that terrible that I don't remember the names of all these places? But I couldn't go because I had a kidney stone. Isn't that terrible?
Those
but
are
I was
so
invited
painful.
to speak at that one. But oh man, I bet I was invited to speak to that one, but I didn't. And no, I've just been speaking at colleges. In fact, I got a email today to speak to a high school graduating class, which made me very, very happy. It really did. And I asked the man who asked me, I said, well, you don't want me to talk about JFK to your graduating class, do you? And he said, oh, no, I mean, you could talk a little bit about it, but I just like your attitude that, you know, we all need to work together and that we all need to find the truth and we need to discern what's truth and what's lies and what's fake news and what's real news and all those things. And it was kind of nice. So, no, Gloria, if you're talking about Lancer, yes, I spoke at that 2014.
All right. Her next question is, have you ever had a chance to speak with Judith Vary Baker, who was Lee Harvey Oswald's lover?
I have. And what does she want to know?
Well, probably what happened in that conversation. I mean, since we're talking.
I believe Miss Baker was an astute cancer student. I mean, probably a genius, probably a savant in cancer, especially for her age. But I have found some issues in her story that I have asked her about and have told her, Judith, if you want to come meet with me face to face and let's talk it out, I'd be willing to. And she's never wanted to do that or never agreed to do that. So if that's what you want to know, that's what I'd like to say about her.
That surprises me.
I think she's a nice...
That surprises me. Sorry to cut you off. Like, I don't know the lady, but I'm surprised that, you haven't built your own little group. Like, I was surprised when you said earlier in the show that you had never met the Zapruder family. I don't know why that's shocking to me, but to me it is.
Yeah. Nope, never met Alexandria. She's the granddaughter. I've never met her. No, I haven't. And it is odd, isn't it? I've met a lot of people, but that's not one of them. I am dear friends with Wesley Buell Frazier, that drove Oswald. I mean, he's a dear friend. I have known many of the older researchers who are no longer with us anymore, because when I was a little girl, they would come see my grandfather. So I knew Penn Jones, and I knew Harold Weisberg, and, some of those people, Jones Harris that I spoke to you about earlier. He never met my grandfather, but I knew of them through my grandfather. So, I tell you, I've been around this stuff all my life, and yeah, it's me. I don't know about Gloria or about Dawn or the people I spoke with earlier. I'm sure they probably do think this way. It's you hear all these different stories and you want to believe and you want to think they're real, and so you need to check them out. And that's what I did with the Surrey story. That's what because it was so strange. Yeah, I thought, nah, but I'm gonna check it out. What the heck? I mean, it's not gonna hurt me to check it out, and it was real. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that. I think that Miss Baker is a nice lady, and I think Beverly Oliver is a nice lady, but I don't agree with a lot of the things she says either. Only because, and here's the reason why. I'm going to tell you the reason why. Miss Oliver is who they consider the babushka lady. One of the interviews that she does when she puts a presentation on, in the middle of one of her presentations, she says, and here's my film that has never been returned. Well, you know what the film is, Dave? It's the Nix film. And she claims that it's hers. So see, there's things like that automatically go, okay. No. I mean, it can't... First off, her film, if it was truly the babushka lady, she was standing next to Mary Mormon. Well, not right next to her, but close by. Can you imagine if anyone could find that film, how close it would be? The Mormon picture is the one that before Gary Mack changed courses, thought he saw, what was it called? Badgeman. Another shooter on the knoll, and that's the Mormon picture. Mary Mormon is a very kind lady too. She's a really nice lady. I know her too. But if Beverly's film had ever been found, if the babushka lady, Beverly the babushka lady, it's the babushka lady film, it would be so close. It would be better than Zapruder, Mormon, and Nix all rolled into one. So for her to put on a presentation and say, oh, and here's the film that I was told was the film that has been lost, and it'd be the Nix film. I mean, come on. I have problems with people that do that kind of stuff. I just do. again, it's probably because of my grandfather. I know here he is out there telling the truth to anyone that will listen, and everybody's shooting him down, and he was there, and he saw it, and people know he was there and can prove that he was there. And, you know, it's bothersome and worrisome and terrible. So there you go. Did I answer that one good or no?
You know, for the longest time,
on that answer?
For the longest time, I always thought the babushka lady was involved with the whole conspiracy of it all, rather than just an eyewitness.
Yeah. I want to say something, speaking of that, along those lines. In the Nix film, and I want to say it's the Mentasana frames. He took still pictures later. He was a professional photographer. There is a little old lady, and I say old in a nice way because I'm not young. So I say it in a nice way. And she's wearing a brown suit, a brown skirt, a brown jacket. It looks tweed, brownish, and a little pillbox hat like Jackie would wear. And she's got gray hair. And as the motorcade is going off towards Parkland with our dying president, or dead by then president, and everyone just totally losing it all around in Dealey Plaza. There you see her, not only in my grandfather's film, but I believe it's in the Much More film, and again, like I said, in one of the other still frames, walking towards the Texas School Book Depository. Everyone is running towards the knoll and behind the, you know, where the trains were, and there she is, walking slowly, and you never see her again, and no one has ever been able to identify her either. And I've always thought that's one of the strangest things ever, too. But there's a lot of strange things that can be seen in that film, in my grandfather's film, you know? Like you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
You know?
Go ahead. Yes. One more question for you before we're going to get to the thought of the Dave. And this one comes from Gayle. Okay. She is saying, if your grandfather's film is missing, what did he sell to UPI?
Okay, I know it's hard to understand. It really is, I know. Okay, he sold the camera original that came out of the camera before it was torn up film. When it was there, when the FBI gave it back to him, they made a copy for themselves. Okay, so the FBI had a copy. When UPI bought the camera original from my grandfather, they made my grandfather a copy. And I'm sure, I'm sure they made several copies over the years. But what we're talking about, Gayle, is the one that came out of the camera, okay? The one that all the copies would have been made from. That's the one that's missing, the original. Did I explain that good or no?
I think that's perfect. We're going to do the thought of the Dave right now. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where during the day I put a question on my Facebook, and then you guys come on in and answer it. But because we have Gayle Nix Jackson as our guest tonight, I figured we could get her to answer it first. So Gayle, we're going to let you play a little bit of Thought of the Dave with me tonight.
Okay.
If you don't mind. My question in the Thought of the Dave is, what is your theory as to why JFK was assassinated?
Okay, can we underscore theory? Okay, because I have no proof. I mean, it's
we'll
like
use
saying
yellow highlighter on that.
Okay,
for
good.
you.
That's right. Theory. It's like me saying I think Daniel Craig is the best James Bond, but even though I like, Sean Connery. My theory. He had made so many enemies. Purposefully, I don't think so. Because of his worldview, I do think so. And in doing so, it made it easy for any rogue, any group, to knock him off and point the finger at someone else. Let's think about it, okay? The anti-Castro Cubans were upset. I don't think that they did it, but there could have been a rogue person that did it. The CIA was upset because of the Bay of Pigs. Anybody in there, the rogue people could have done it. The FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, it's well known he couldn't stand him. Any one of those could have done it. The right wing Citizens White Council in Dallas, run by General Walker, and who felt that segregation was where it was at and integration was bad, and women should be in the household and not making their mouths open for anything except to say, yes, honey. I mean, that group, there were so many. There's so many. So that's what makes it harder. And I honestly think that whoever did this knew that, was smart enough to realize that, we'll think it's everybody. I mean, we were in the huge Cold War scare, and just the word commie, just the word pinko, just the word red, communist, made everybody go hide their heads in a fire drill or a bomb drill at school. I mean, so yeah, I have no idea. No idea. Do I think there were plenty of people who could have done it? Heck yeah. I mean, look at all those I just named. So, I mean, did what happened at Dealey Plaza that day, was it a CIA op? And one of these rogue elements that I just mentioned decided to do the same thing at the same time without knowledge of each other. And so there had to be a cover-up, and so then we're covering up everything. I mean, I don't know.
All right.
But I have my ideas. Yeah.
Well, let's run through a few of our listeners and see what they said. Grant says he pissed in the mafia's cornflakes. Well, we know that's for sure. That leads into Gayle's comment. She says, I always think of the Joker in the original Batman movie. You ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight? JFK's father made a deal with the mafia to get him elected. After the election, the mafia was betrayed. It was mafia payback with the cooperation of a disgruntled CIA and other government people. Karen says, it's ugly. Poppy Bush plus LBJ plus the mob minus everyone, even Nixon had a minor role. Papa Bush doesn't remember where he was that day. Of course. Dallas says LBJ hated him, and the military-industrial complex wanted war in Vietnam that he opposed. Let's go on. Tammy says,
I agree with every one of those.
Tammy says what he knew and changes he wanted to make would likely have shut down the CIA.
Yes. And the military, a lot of the military, yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Ned Kopsak says he didn't bow to globalist world leaders, and the New World Order and our government deep state executed him, as they tried to execute Reagan as well. Getting deep here. Getting deep. Coral states, man, all of these above answers are excellent, but for her, he was talking about putting America back on the gold standard. She read an article reporting his concern with the monetary system and who was in control of it, i.e. the really big bankers of the world. Can you say Rothschilds? You know, that's who we're talking about. But she seriously doubts we'll ever be able to find answers to 3 of the 5 W's. Let's see here. Let's see. Steven says he was going to stop the war machine, join forces with Russia in the space race. That wouldn't have been good, but that happened anyways. Amazing how that one turned out.
Didn't it?
Yes, amazing how the United States now needs Russia to get astronauts up into space. All right. Let's see here. Elizabeth says Dad made a deal with the Chicago mob with either dollars for votes or mob-friendly policies for votes, or both. JFK upset the military-industrial complex leaders that wanted war with the USSR. He upset the Cubans who wanted Cuba back from Castro. He upset Hoover, who had a file on every single president about everything, and yet JFK still didn't fear him. Robert didn't allow Joe to honor the votes for mob-friendly policies, and literally, this was the last straw. If you go against the mob, no matter how many people want you dead, the mob will always put a hit out on you, and even if you have enough enemies in high places, they will either help or look the other way. That's what a lot of Marge Simpsoning around here. All right.
Oh my! I haven't heard anyone mention the Dallas oil guys, H.L. Hunt and Clint Murkison. By the way, you'll know that you're truly a JFK research person if you understand It's pronounced Murchison, not Murchison.
All right.
So I thought I'd let you know. Yeah. There's a town in East Texas that's named after him.
Really?
By the way. And he's the one that had the racetrack, La Jolla. The La Jolla racetrack where he would show J. Edgar Hoover and his boyfriends a good time. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That was Clint Murchison. Yeah.
Let's see what
friends
you think.
With,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Friends with
No.
who?
I was just going to say who all he was friends with. I mean, giving money to, the gun runners and to the militiamen and helping out Castro and helping out the FBI and friends with the mafia. I mean, the Texas oil boys, they knew what they were doing, and they didn't want their oil knocked down. And Kennedy was talking about that too, putting the oil depreciation tax, taking it away.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want that happening. There would go millions upon millions. So, yeah, he made a lot of enemies, a lot. And I don't think that he did it purposefully. I mean, it was just, this is how he wanted to run the world. And, there were too many people that didn't agree. So.
And voting him out
just
would have been too difficult. Too difficult. Paul here, you'll like Paul's answer here. He was going to release information regarding aliens, UFOs, and the agreement that was signed by, I believe, well, it wasn't Jimmy Carter, because Carter was after, but we'll say Dwight Eisenhower, with the agreement that aliens are welcome and that no harm would come to them. He is not the only one to say that they are here. Many presidents know, and some wanted to tell the world of their existence, which is why JFK was assassinated, who, by, of course, the CIA. Aliens. Do you think aliens had anything to do with this?
I don't, but it could have been. I mean, I don't know. I know as much as any theorist knows. We're all theorists when it comes to this, except for the people who did it. They know. God knows. They know. So I have no idea.
Thaddeus says...
I do know that it
go ahead.
happened.
Yes.
No, it happened. So
it does. It does. I've had a number of people here, though, say that government officials no longer kill people anymore. They're not into the killing game anymore after the...
they can just ruin your lives. Yeah, they can just ruin your lives with all the...
child pornography and things like that.
Yeah.
That's how they get,
That's right.
Yeah, that dark web stuff is terrible. All right.
Yeah. I did want to say this before we go. I want to say one more thing before you. Someone said to me, a man I highly respect, said to me, he goes, Gayle, have you ever thought about the Kennedy assassination in this way? Kennedy was very ill. He had Addison's disease and wearing a back brace, taking all those drugs just to, get him going because he was in so much pain. I mean, the man would die sooner or later. I mean, and an assassination in front of his wife and in front of the world in a big, U.S. city is more an act of passion than anything else. And, that is something to think about. Yes. I mean, we are always thinking about motives of all these groups and CIA, aliens, mafia and all, but it is an act of passion. So who would want to send an act of passion that way? Who would do that? So, I don't know. It's just something to contemplate. Yeah, something to think about. Like we don't have enough to think about.
Gayle Nix Jackson, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. What a pleasure. What an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me here, and I hope to talk to you again in the future. It has been wonderful, and I appreciate and thank you to your listeners who were kind enough to send in questions and listen. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Could you please tell our listeners once again where they can get your book?
Oh, thank you. At Amazon.com or go to my website. You'll find my contact information there. Send me an email. I will gladly sign one and send you a PayPal invoice. You can buy one straight from me. I mean, if you don't want to go but it's really cheap on Amazon. You can get a Kindle, and if you have Prime, I think it's free. And there's a paperback if you don't want a hardback. I've got hardcovers. I've got the books like in a library. But you can get it cheaper on Amazon that way if you don't want a hardcover. But thank you for your interest, and please keep chasing the truth. And please question everything. Question, even me. I mean, question everything and find the right answers. Line. Parting line.
I appreciate that. You hold on one second. I'm going to wrap this thing up.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you to
Thank you,
Gayle.
Dave.
Thank you to Gayle Nix Jackson for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Tomorrow night on the program, University of Miami professor Joe Uzinski. We're getting into conspiracy theories, how they happen, as well as fake news. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Want to say a big thank you to everybody tuning in tonight. Everybody on Twitter at hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Everybody on Periscope.tv. Now, if you're listening elsewhere, you want to join us, we're going live on Periscope.tv. We're still there. We're going to do the after-hours show there to say hello. How are you? I'm feeling in the mood for a little rock and roll tonight, so you can join us as well. Periscope.tv/SpacedOutRadio. I want to say thank you to everybody at hashtag SpacedOutRadio listening in your cars, at home, at work, in the Spreaker chat room, and everybody in the Veterans Club on the SOR Space Travelers. Thank you so much for having a great night with me tonight, because together, my friends, we own the night. I'll talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.